little
That's
bit.
not the way the internet travels. We have to be on the correct positions.
Yeah, no, it did go correctly because we're live now. I know you don't realize that yet.
We are live here too. So yes.
Oh, no shit. All right. Well, what's up, everybody? How are you? Happy Thursday. I am Ron Placone.
And I'm Tina Desiree Berg, reporting for Status Coup News. Today we have a really fun live stream because it's not just going to be Ron and I. We are welcoming Jordan back for joining us today for a little while. Zane is going to be joining us for a little while, and we're basically going to discuss what's the better option here, third-party politics or Dem entering, fixing the Dem party, or maybe you're somebody that sees problems with both like I do. And sometimes the benefits for one side are beneficial for both sides. So we're going to kind of hash out all of those things. So thank you for joining us.
Smash the like button.
Yes,
smash it. Show it who's boss. We got Zana is joining us today. There's this new guy. I think Jordan's his name. He's popping in. We're going to see what happens. This is going to be an exciting discussion. But first, you got to smash that like button. Show it who's boss. The like button's been talking shit all holiday season. And it's time that you don't harm your machine, but really just like it. And if YouTube's like, I'm not sure if that was a like, I'm not going to, no, you like it again. And you ring the bell for the notification, because otherwise YouTube's like, well, you subscribe, but maybe you don't want to know anything. No. I subscribed and I want the information. Ring the bell. There you go. Yeah, there it is. See? Yes. See the bell thing? Yes, you all of it. That's what you have to do. That is what they it's so ridiculous. They're like, "Oh, you subscribe to this? I'm sure you don't want to know when things go live. I'm sure you don't want to know that." No, I do. Otherwise, I wouldn't have hit that subscribe button. That doesn't make any sense. So make sure you ring the bell for the all notifications, not some of them. Ring the bell like it's the like button. All right, let's start this. Let's start this discussion.
All right, let's start this. So Jordan, Zana, come in, join us. There he is, the new daddy.
Hey.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Happy to pop in today. I don't know if I'll make any sense on no sleep, but I'll try. And I've been an avid viewer of Ron and Tina holding it down the last few weeks, and excited that Zane is joining. And I think I don't know, like, I don't think this would be like a fierce debate. I think we're gonna discuss it because obviously there's I think validity on all sides of this equation. My mentality is whatever will get us power the quickest. But as we've learned, just winning doesn't necessarily mean fighting. So that also vetting, whether it's a third party candidate, a Democratic candidate, or other things, we need to vet to make sure our candidates, third party or Democrat candidates, are actually going to agitate and fight. But I'm excited Zana's here because you've kind of been on both sides of this, trying to take over the Dem party, as well as you were with MPP for a bit. So before we start, maybe give your life story and biography.
Oh boy, my whole life story. Okay, well, I started out as a waitress. No, I'm just kidding. I really did. I was in the restaurant industry for 14 years, but that's a whole other story. So I went to work after college. I graduated with degrees in public relations and journalism, did on the beat, on the ground journalism for several years, loved it. Covered organizing, action, some of the kinds of things that Status Coup covers now. Loved that work. But I volunteered at Brand New Congress, actually, and that's what sort of kicked me off. And Brand New Congress's whole goal was to run independents, run non-corporate Democrats, and to have the communities recruit and nominate the candidates. So the candidates couldn't even nominate themselves. They had to be nominated by other communities, which has changed now for the organization. But at the time, they were working with Justice Democrats. They were combined PACs. So I helped with communications for Justice Democrats and brand new Congress. So even though I worked with Democratic Party candidates, I was never really on the Reform the Dem Party bandwagon, but I got to see it all from the back end, if that makes any sense. And sort of the philosophies behind it. I also had a chance to see running non-corporate candidates, people like Paula Jean Swearingen, Anthony Clark, Amy Villela, just what is thrown at these candidates by the Democratic Party, especially the establishment. If somebody is a non-corporate candidate in a primary, they are going to do everything they possibly can to crush those races. I've also seen where people like AOC, who I used to coach, and I was a communications coach for her. I worked with Cori Bush for 5 years, get elected. I was always a little iffy about Alex. I'm not going to lie. AOC, she didn't come off as genuine to me as some of the other candidates. But Cori Bush, I thought for sure is going to like be the real deal when she gets up there. But I've seen how the pressures of being on Capitol Hill and the lack of accountability from organizations like Justice Democrats, Brand New Congress, and others, they run the people, but when they get up there, they won't call them out. I mean, it's no different than the Democratic Party backing Joe Manchin and then whining when he does something. And so that's another example. I worked for Paula Jean Swearingen for both campaigns. I saw the Democratic Party back her over Joe Manchin, and then in 2018, and then whine when Joe Manchin votes the way he does. Well, you guys knew that. You had an opportunity to unseat him. Yeah. Someone running against him that was extremely popular, but instead of backing her, this party did everything to crush her race. And so those are the kind of perspectives that I come from. Then I was executive director at the People's Party, thinking, well, you know, I've always supported independence, always wanted to throw a wrench in this machine because people say it's broken. Our electoral are broken. They're not broken for the oligarchs. They're not broken for the people at the top. They're designed to be exactly what they are in order for them to maintain their hegemony, their power, to give corporate bailouts and corporate welfare while they sell us on incrementalism and breadcrumbs as if we should be happy for these small wins while our lives don't change. And that's really the gist of it. That's what I've come away with learning. And the biggest word for me on everything from action and organizing, because I've done that for 20 years, to the electoral work is accountability. Who holds these people accountable? If there is no accountability for a third party, if there is no accountability for these orgs that are running these non-traditional candidates, if there's no accountability once people get into power, then there is no way for us to make change, because ultimately it comes down to the money, the status, the power, the influence at the end of the day. That's Absolutely. It. My life story, Jordan. Thanks for asking, guys.
You make a very cohesive point, though, about power, right? This is power that is willing to crush not only third-party candidates, but also progressive candidates that are non-corporate. So that is just, the problem here is power is what I'm hearing, regardless of what side of the debate you're on or what side of the conversation you're on. The problem's power. It's power wanting to crush, power wanting to stay in power, and doing whatever is necessary to achieve that goal.
Well, a few things before we get to our opening statements for this 7 hour. No, I buried the lead since people were asking. Let's put people in a good mood. Let's show my wonderful daughter, Lily.
Oh, yes.
So there's my daughter, Lily, 7 weeks old, I believe, hanging out, watching the live stream with me. She's a cutie.
I think we should point out that Lily always votes green.
Yes. Lily has expressed to me she votes green. No Democratic Party for her. There's our menorah. That's the extent of my religious observation. And
oh, she's so cute.
There's her little strawberry bandana there, or whatever that is. Yeah, it's been quite the adventure so far. She is beautiful. Was born a little light. Was born at 5 pounds 4 ounces, so she was tiny. So we've been trying to just put the weight on. She's about 7 pounds 10 ounces now, and it's now in the stage of wanting to eat a shit ton constantly, particularly overnight. So as you parents know in the audience and Zana, it's not a lot of sleep, but it's been really great. It definitely gives you a new perspective on things being a parent. And I'll be back. I'm only popping in today. I'll be back, more regularly, probably middle of next month. I wish I could say that I've been exclusively with mom and daughter, but I've also been working on a book. So it hasn't been as relaxing, I would say, as a break as I would have wanted. Obviously, my main focus has been helping out with my daughter. My wife is doing an amazing job with all the things that a new mother has to do, way more than a father has to do. So I'm hoping to be back kind of middle of the month. So yeah, that's what's going on with me. I have been observing from afar. And I'm also working on another investigative story on top of the book. So I've been busy, but I just wanted to throw that out there, and thanks everybody for the well wishes. And as Ron said, please smash that like button, because if you haven't noticed, YouTube, it seems like they like to crank the machine every so often, a little more severe on us. The numbers haven't been swell. So definitely, if you can, smash the like button, and super chats are always welcome. The world is your oyster, Ron. Where would you like to start in terms of our opinions here?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I can start with like my take on it all. And first of all, I will mention I was actually born a little small too. I was 4 pounds, and they told
and your hair was about 2 of them.
My hair, yeah, totally. My hair was like half the height. I came out like this, and I actually did come out with a full head of hair. That is the truth. But they told my mom, the doctor told my mom to like feed me milkshakes. And I have been wanting to get that order from a doctor again ever since. And I never have. I didn't realize how good I had it. Still to this day, like when I go see the doctor, I'm like, should I be having more milkshakes? They're like, no, you should be having less of them, you idiot. And I'm like, God damn it. Didn't know how good I had it. But for this debate or discussion, again, I think one thing where we're all in agreement here is that electoralism in general is just one tool in the toolkit of change. Overall, I would say it is often an over-amplified tool. I think that more important tools are strikes and protests and unified labor and things like that. However, that doesn't mean that it's not still a tool. I consider it a very annoying but sadly necessary tool. Like it's still good to obviously we still need to try to elect better lawmakers, especially when we're fighting for policy and things like that. The reason I lean a lot more towards third party is because, I mean, first of all, peeks under the hood I've had with the Democratic Party. I mean, people make it out like the Democratic Party is this like entity that's just waiting for change. And it's not. I mean, and when I say Democratic Party, I don't mean regular people who just vote Democrat because they're just given these duopoly of choices. I mean, like the people actually running the Democratic Party, the DNC operatives and stuff like that. For the most part, those people are right wingers who just aren't as crazy as the Republicans, but they have health insurance stock. That's the party they want. That's what the Democratic Party is to them. And they got the reins and they got the power. For either thing to be successful, either a viable third party or overtaking the Democratic Party, the rules need to change. Money needs to get out of politics. Something like ranked choice voting needs to become the lay of the land. Those rules need to happen for either of these things to be successful. So if we are successful in changing those rules, I don't see the point in lefties entering the Democratic Party that is just not a left-wing party. When you look at other countries, usually there's about 2 parties that are like the main big parties on campus. And that's fairly typical. But the reason that like the Tories, well, they're an extreme party. They're not near as extreme as the Democrats. I would even argue the Republicans. I would even argue that the Tories are to the left of the Democrats in a lot of cases. The reason other parties aren't as extreme is because they need to come to the communist and the socialist and the Greens to get any policy done. So imagine a situation where, like, hey, maybe there were 3 or 4 seats occupied by the Green Party in Congress. The Republicans and Democrats would need to come to the Greens to get anything passed. And as a result, the Democrats would actually be a centrist party and not some right-wing party like they are now. And the Republicans would need to be slightly less psychotic than they are now because they would need the Greens to get any types of policy. You know, we abide by this imaginary tethering that like, well, it's always been intended to be a two-party system. That's only because of money. And that's only, I mean, really, if you want to try to trace it back to the founding fathers, they actually were calling for a system with no parties, not a system with two parties. So really, it's just money that's tethering us to all that. So if we started breaking and changing those rules, we could have more proportional representation as far as different parties, the way other countries do. And I think that's the way to go. You know, like when Democrats say, like, we're a big wide tent, that's the opposite of what a political party is supposed to be. A wide tent's supposed to be your neighborhood. In your neighborhood, you're going to have capitalists, socialists, and everything, and everyone tries to get along and do what's best for the neighborhood. That's one thing. But in a political party, you're supposed to have an agenda, a set of policies that you think is going to make the country you live in better. And you debate those ideas. So if you have this wide tent where you don't agree on any policies, what the hell kind of political party is that? The only reason that exists in this country is because we only have two parties. So, right. And that's why I really don't get, side note here, I really don't get Andrew Yang's idea of like, hey, we're going to have a third party that accepts corporate money and has no policy ideas. We already have that, Andrew. They're called the Democrats. We have that already. It ain't going so great. So that's why I'm more third party in this discussion.
Gotcha. I'll also say before, I think there's several points that are really important for any one of these options, whether it's Dem takeover, third party, or screw them both. I lean more towards the screw them both. I could get to that. But there's three things, and I'm pretty sure, Zana, you have experience with all of them. Number one, whether it's the Dem party, working within the Dem party, or doing a third party, there's a huge issue in America, and that is who votes and who doesn't. I've been going around for 7 years, presidential elections, local elections, Congress, mayors, doesn't matter. The most reliable voters in this country, unfortunately, are baby boomers and people 65 and up. And we have quite a few of you in our audience, so it's not a universal thing that you're all neoliberals. But by the data, most baby boomers tend to vote for more establishment, more neoliberal candidates because they've been fed bullshit and brainwashing for 30 years through media, New York Times, that, you know, this is just politics and, you know, the things Bernie pushed for are not possible or too extreme, or, oh, those kids, and, you know, right. they want all that. So if whether you're third party or you're running in the Democratic Party, you have to figure out how to get some of those normie people over to you. It doesn't matter which option. I said when Bernie was running in 2020, he doesn't have a chance unless he could pull 10% of the 65 and over from 2016. Not to get in the weeds, but there was one point during Bernie 2020 when he was actually pulling senior citizens from Joe Biden over to him. It was when his campaign was laser focused on the fact that Biden, when he was a senator, was trying to privatize Social Security.
Right.
The polling actually shrunk, and Bernie started pulling older people. And that was the first time ever. And that's when, like, you know, Chris Matthews was having his fucking breakdown that this is like the Nazis invading Paris. So whether you do a third party or whether you do Dem takeover, unless you have a magic elixir that's going to get every person under 35 to vote in America, which I don't think anyone has, you have to figure out how to get to some of these normie people. Second thing is, and Zana, you know this, you have to have a media strategy because the media is going to go after you in multiple ways, or they're just going to ignore you on the third party end.
We're going to ignore you like they ignored the challenger in the Tom Suozzi race, Melanie Durago. And who beat Tom Suozzi? That dude that lied about everything, including being Jewish, that the New York Times just reported on now. They didn't report on the race while Melanie was running. They never covered Melanie. And now they're talking about this guy. Little too late.
Yeah. Basically,
people just reflexively based on their, understandable, like I'm done with the Democratic Party, just say like third party, or some people say take over the Dem Party. But until we answer these questions, how are you going to get some normie people, or how are you going to figure out a media strategy? I don't think either are very likely to be successful. And then the third thing is winning isn't enough. We've already seen in the last 3 years, we got some progressives elected, and they're not doing much. So we need a better way of. I mean, you never know. Everyone's a human being. We can't know when rallying around, whether it's a third party candidate or a Dem candidate, whether they're going to get in there and fold like a cheap tent. But those are the three things, and particularly you saw in the midterms, young people actually made the difference for the Democrats to win, keep the Senate. They came out, I think, based on the polls, based on Roe v. Wade primarily. But that's not the norm, that they come out in even comparable numbers to older people. So I think for a third party, I get grief like I'm anti-third party. If you look at this channel, we probably interviewed more third party candidates than any other channel this cycle. We have a whole playlist. I'm not anti-third party. My main focus, or my main pushback, has been, and I asked this before the whole MPP thing, but I asked this: what is your answer on ballot access? Because if you think the Dems are screwing progressives running within the Democratic Party,
what do you think
they're doing to Green Party candidates? Look what they did to Matthew. I always mispronounce it. I think Matthew Ho in North Carolina. The dirty tricks and illegal tricks to get him off. So until there's a real strategy, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Zana, because you had to deal with this with MPP, getting ballot access, with in many cases Democratic governors control ballot access, a media strategy, building a fundraising apparatus. Yes, no corporate money, that's important, but you do need money to compete. I'm not anti-third party, but you actually have to have that really planned out, well thought out. You need like good lawyers on your team because they're going to throw everything at you. So that was my main thing with third parties. Not that I'm against a third party. I don't think we're not going to take over this corrupt system within the Democratic Party anytime soon. I would prefer it to be a third party, but those are serious questions that I haven't seen answered. The closest thing has been the Green Party. Jill Stein, I think, was on 47 state ballots. Yeah. But of course, there was the media blackout, or when they covered her, obviously didn't cover her fairly. So those are my thoughts on the third party. On the Dem takeover, I don't think a Dem takeover is the wisest strategy, but I will say, because people have a short kind of selective amnesia, I think that people forget that within the last 2 years, the progressive movement was kind of, if it's a football game, on the 5-yard line of winning the nomination within the corrupt Democratic Party. If Bernie didn't make, I think, some key mistakes, and he made many, he had a serious shot at winning the nomination. So I don't like what the Democratic Party stands for. I think it, at this point, seems like a fool's errand to keep running within the Democratic Party. But in terms of which had a better shot over the last 20, 30 years, I mean, objectively, after Nevada, everyone thought he was within 2 weeks of basically clinching it. I think he made crucial mistakes that screwed him from winning. So to me, I've talked about this over and over, you get more clicks online by choosing one or the other and not being nuanced. I don't think it's particularly mutually exclusive. I think people could try to build a third party while others could try to do their work within the Democratic Party. But I think where the progressive movement's energy needs to go to is not focusing on, not abandoning either, but focus on outside electoral politics strategy, because that, to me, is the quickest way to win concessions. And we have had some victories over the last year or two that haven't gotten enough attention. If you would have asked me, Ron, 2 years ago, if I thought any Amazon in America would be unionized, I would ask you what you're smoking, knowing what I know about Amazon.
And the answer is good shit, but regardless, we see what happened.
Starbucks workers, Trader Joe's workers, the tenants unions that are forming, You have protests that are happening, environmental protests that are happening. To me, there is action happening on the ground. What's missing from it is the economic component. I mean, I went down to Occupy Wall Street a decade ago. That's when I first started like really focusing on politics. It was a leaderless movement, but they were out there for a while and it gathered a lot of steam. What was missing was an economic component. There were no economic boycotts attached to it. There was no general strike attached to it. I mean, it was early days. Social media wasn't what it is now. That was 2011. I think, I'm not going to lie to people and say, hey, we could have a general strike tomorrow. But I think really we could do direct action. I've been covering protests for 10 years. People are protesting around the same streets, chanting the same shit over and over. I'm not criticizing them. That's just what it is. And then they go home. The oligarchy is fine with that. If you get a little too rowdy, they'll use their security forces, the cops, to batter your head in. But if there's an economic component, if those millions of people that were out on the streets for George Floyd, if, I don't know, 5-10% of them did more than one-day boycotts of big box retail, Amazon, big banking, that's when you get concessions. That's when you get more than crumbs because the donors run the system. That's why I have the flag. So I'll say more later. I don't want to go on a long ranted monologue. But to me, yes, try to build a third party, but don't lie to people that it's easy. Don't lie to people that it could even be successful in the next 5 to 10 years. Level with people what it would take to build a third party. I also don't think, we had the Our Revolution guy on last week. I think he's a nice guy. I think it's a fool's errand what they're doing. I think that they are, taking small little nothing burger victories and trying to make it seem like they're major victories. We all don't have the next 10 to 20 years to take over the Democratic Party. So if certain people want to work within the Democratic Party, fine. But to me, yeah, build a third party if that's what you want. Work within Democratic Party if that's what you want. But wherever you stand, everybody needs to get involved, even if it's not your workplace, with these protest movements. And you know what? There was something called meetup.com where when I lived in the city, I went to meetups. We need that on the progressive movement for people in their communities to get together and start creating local organizing hubs, which Zana, a lot about, because you're not going to have a general strike tomorrow, but you could start locally. That's where I think people need to focus. That's why I kind of put in the headline, screw both.
Can I talk?
I think it's Tina's turn.
I didn't want to interrupt anybody that was going to. So I understand what you're getting at, Ron, and I don't disagree. I would like to see the United States become more like a parliamentary system where you had competitive parties competing for votes and then having to build coalitions, because that's really how you get the voice of the people. The problems I'm going to bring up are the structural ones that sort of Jordan has touched upon, because I don't know that people realize how deep and problematic they are. And they exist in both worlds, right? There's systemic problems with the Dem-Enter side, and there are systemic problems with trying to build a third party system. And it's because of that thing that Jordan initially mentioned, the power, right? The people in power don't want to give up that power, so they're going to use whatever they can to smash it on both sides, right? So, I mean, first of all, the state ballot access, you mentioned that. This is a huge problem, and the Green Party has been struggling with this for decades, for a very long time, for as long as they've existed, probably. To give you an idea, to get on the state ballot in Montana, you need 5% of all voters to sign a petition. 5% of all voters is a lot. So it's very hard to get ballot access in that state. Some states are easier than others, but each one has its own set of hurdles, right? You have an electoral system that's winner takes all. That in and of itself kills a third party presidential candidate. Do I think ranked choice voting will eliminate that problem? I do. And I also think it would help with the Dem-Enter side. I think ranked choice voting, if we push for something like that, helps out the entire problem across the board. It's just a beneficial thing we should do, is push for ranked choice voting. I think the other problem is federal campaign finance laws, right? So you get match funds. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party don't need to apply for match funds. They're going to get them regardless. But if you're a third party candidate, you need to get 5% of the vote in the previous election, not the one you're in now, right? So the only time I think, and Zana, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, the only time I think that's ever happened was Ross Perot. And he did get matching funds from the government, not for his election cycle, for the next one, when he wasn't running anymore. So point being is that all of these things that have been put in place to prevent a third party from taking power are really substantial, and it's going to be very difficult to dismantle them and correct them. I'm not saying that shouldn't be done. I think it should be done because I think all of these things are incredibly undemocratic. Now, on the Demender side, let's talk about the Democratic Party. I have been in so many DNC meetings for years, decades. I've covered these guys. So I've seen firsthand what goes on in those meetings, and it's pretty ugly. I'm not going to lie to you. I have seen them.
To be clear, so you're not mischaracterized, you've been in as a journalist, not a DNC member.
That is correct. Thank you, Jordan. Yes, I have covered them as a journalist, the DNC meetings. And I have seen some really, bad stuff happen from inside. I was there when Jim Zogby had his problem with the DNC. It was really horrific. I was there when the Sunrise Movement burst through the doors and shut down the meeting because they were not going to be ignored. So, I've seen all this stuff. It is really problematic. I've seen on the floor where you have, half the DNC members are absolutely lobbyists. That's not an exaggeration. That's just a fact of the matter. They're lobbyists. They are fighting for corporate interests. The head of the DNC right now is a lobbyist. So yeah, there's problems there. I will also say, though, that a lot of the progressives that have been working to get, as Jordan said, to that, the 5th yard line or whatever in the football that is, they feel like they have been making changes. Is it slow going? Yes, it is. But I think if you talk to some of those folks that are doing that work, they feel that they have made substantial changes at the state level, which is, I think, where you have to begin anyway. Starting with the delegates that get elected into the party system. If you have nothing but corporate delegates at that level, it affects everything going all the way from the top to the bottom, right? Those are the folks that are really making the decisions. So they've been successfully running progressive candidates into those slots and placing them. I think that's a win. Slow going, is it going to get us to anywhere that we need to be within 2 or 3 years? Probably not. But neither of these sides are going to get us there. So, which brings me to what I think is a solution too, and I agree with Jordan here, is you have to push electoral politics from the outside. Don't say, I'm not going to vote for a Democratic candidate simply because they're a Democrat. That's stupid. Don't say, I'm not going to vote for a third party candidate simply because they're third party. Also stupid. Take a look at these individuals and make judgment calls on who they are or who you think they're going to be as politicians, no matter which party they're attached to. And I think voting in primaries is something that needs to happen on a bigger scale. A lot of the good candidates, like you brought up Melanie, I interviewed her and she was a fantastic candidate. But look at the turnout for these primary elections. They're piss poor. People aren't coming out and voting for these great candidates, so we're losing them before they ever enter a general election. So I think that's also really problematic. But I think being able to push politicians with a force, like with a real force from the outside, is how you get things done. That's why unions were so effective back in the day. It's why the growing labor movement we're seeing currently is going to be able to push for much more economic change than any electoral politics will on its own. You need people to push, to give pressure to, right? That's what these guys respond to, no matter what party they're associated with.
I'd also say, real quick on the Dem part, I think I agree with you. I've never believed in, I don't care if it's Jesus. If they have a D next to their name, I'm not voting. I think that I understand why people hate the Democratic Party. I do too. But if I think a candidate is really good, if I believe that they are going to fight, I'm not going to cut off my head despite my whatever.
Exactly.
But I do think there needs to be more of a purity test, so to speak, when considering these candidates that are running in the Democratic Party. I think it needs to be a condition when journalists are interviewing them, but also for voters, that they agree to vote as a block with other progressives. This is standard business in United Kingdom, Australia, other, even if it's a parliamentary system or other forms of government, the different factions, and in other countries, as Ron pointed out, there's a lot more parties. They vote as a block. Sure, if there's a specific thing that, like a specific issue that just morally you don't feel right voting for, or you feel you have to, that's one thing. But there were many opportunities for the squad to vote together and kill legislation or
And they didn't, yeah.
Or to demand concessions, which might have seemed small to some of us, but at least get something. And they have basically said, well, we vote alone. Well, what's the point of you being there then? You have no power if you don't use it together. I thought, Zana, maybe you know more. I thought that was kind of the point of Justice Democrats, of getting in there.
The whole plan. Well, not Justice Democrats necessarily, but sometimes people confuse Justice Democrats with Brand New Congress. Justice Democrats had a platform, but Brand New Congress's whole thing, and we were the ones who launched most of these people, and we were the ones who launched AOC's campaign. People don't know that. It wasn't Justice Democrats. That came around a little bit later. We were also the one to launch Cori Bush's campaign, right? But the whole point was they sign on to a slate, then candidates hold each other accountable, and then the organizations hold them accountable. But in my last months there, they were saying things like they weren't going to take nominations anymore, from the communities. They were going to start handpicking people that they can get donations off of, so that it'll build up our fundraising. And then we can't say anything about them because they were elected because people want. It's not just the money. That's what people get kind of confused sometimes. The money is a driving force, but one of the biggest driving forces I've seen break up progressive movements, whether it be union organizing, whether it be organizations that are trying to build co-ops, do things on the ground, or whatever it might be, is the proximity to celebrity, the proximity to power, the trying to make a name for yourself. And another problem is so many of these people that are brought into leadership roles of these organizations, we see it across pundits. I'm not talking about you guys, but I am talking about across pundits, even on the leftist sphere. I've been researching. There are people that their parents were DC elite. They're from, Matt Taibbi's a great example. Matt does some good journalism, but his dad was an NBC, like a famous NBC commentator, and he's been inside the DC Beltway. So even in these organizations, everyone's from the Beltway. Everyone's from privilege. They don't know how to talk to people like me. They don't know how to talk to Appalachians. They aren't reaching out to us. They're telling us incrementalism is fine. And so when they get to Capitol Hill, when we're voting these people in, Cori Bush was different. She's not from that. AOC was. Cori Bush wasn't. But when we get people in and they're surrounded by, and then they get in and they get that influence, they have that proximity to power. It's not always the money. Sometimes it's the name. And I've even found that to be a bigger driving force than the money. And we have to remember that about our politicians. It's not just the corporate interest. It's not just the corporate money. Because I thought get the corporate money out of it, and this will be solved. But I saw corruption from organizations that didn't take a dime in corporate money because they wanted proximity to power and they wanted to make a name for themselves.
Yep.
Well, the bottom line is she's the easiest one to identify, but I've seen AOC do more magazine covers than protests led over the last year. I'm not against getting media coverage or writing a book, but I think I've seen her in GQ, Vanity Fair, and however, she was on Rolling Stone with Mama Bear. That's not exactly bringing the ruckus to the Democratic Party. I don't think it's all her fault. It's easier to put her in a headline and get clicks and do, go at her. There's plenty of others that ran on agitating the Democratic Party. So that's what I mean. Within the Democratic Party, it's not enough to just not take corporate money. That was great when Bernie started that 5 or 6 years ago, but that's not enough anymore. We need to vet these candidates that if you're running as a progressive, your life story matters. I want to identify with you and believe you're authentic, but I want to know, and you need to make the pledge when you're running that pretty much down the line, you guys are going to vote together. And what concessions are you going to demand? Perfect example. In beginning of 2021, Biden just got in there. He needed to pass a coronavirus bill. The economy was still collapsing and cases were through the roof. I don't know, however many were dying at the time. By the way, sorry to tell you, COVID still is a thing.
No, in fact, it's increasing again.
But he did that whole bullshit parliamentarian thing that the parliamentarian won't let us do the $15 minimum wage. Well,
which is so stupid.
We know what it was in the Senate, 50-50, But the squad, if they would have voted together saying we are voting no unless the $15 minimum wage is part of this, I believe they would have won. Now they cannot force it on the Senate side, Manchin and Sinema, whatever, that is what it is. But I believe they could have demanded concessions if they were willing to fight, because the margin in the House, I think, was 5 votes. The Democrats had control. So there were tangible ways that forced the vote that they chose not to. And that's why we need to do a better job vetting. Listen, there's plenty of candidates. They could pledge to do it when they're a candidate and then get in there and screw you. But we need to do a better job vetting. And by the way, to the people who want a third party, I never really understood this. Zana, I'm sure you might have better insight. If you want to do a third party, why reinvent the wheel? Why not just take over the Green Party that has been a shit show, yes, but has had success getting on ballots, has had victories on a local level. There's somewhat of an infrastructure. I never understood building an entirely new party. Maybe there's more corruption in the Green Party that I don't know about, but there is a third party that exists. And if you want to do a third party, to me, why not start there?
But it's only one. We need several, I think. I mean, we could make the same argument. That's what the Mrs. Caucus did with the Libertarian Party just a little while ago. But what people don't realize is in every single state, getting on the ballot is completely different. Some states you can't get on the ballot for 3 or 4 years because you can only do it by running a gubernatorial race and getting 2%. But there's a loophole here. And this is what I've been saying. This is my solution. You asked, what's the solution, Jordan? Here's the solution. After researching all of this, looking at all these states, trying to figure out what all the barriers are. The solution is the barriers are always less to run state and local. And the barriers are less to run independent. Anyone can run independent. It's easy to run independent. But here's the thing. We're looking at the shiny stuff over here. Like people are already talking about who's going to run president, while we've got state house elections coming up and they're passing things like right to work legislation where they're taking away our rights, anti-abortion laws. They're privatizing our libraries and our health clinics. They're doing horrible things at the state level that are really impacting our lives in a way that federal isn't. And the Republican Party is sweeping in state and local races
because they're stronger.
Because they realize
the Democratic Party walked away from so many state mechanisms years ago. The Republican
run in Kentucky. They don't run here.
That's right. The Republican Party on the state level is a hell of a lot stronger than the Democratic Party is. Absolutely not up for debate. You're right on that.
We could run independent and we could get 10 to 15 seats in one state house. This is what I wanted MPP to do. Let's target 6 states. Let's get 15 people in and let's literally force them to vote. Let's do the thing like you're talking about, Jordan, at the federal level, like they want to do, but let's do it with the third party or independent candidates, build a coalition in the state houses and push that influence there because it would have the most impact on people's real lives right now. I'm talking things like food stamps, housing, libraries, school funding, education funding. Tuition used to be funded at 85% at state universities. Tina, you mentioned this the other day.
It was 100% funded here in the state of California. You're correct. It's been definanced, but it was entirely funded here in California. We defunded our state public university systems. And so, which was wild to me when people would say to Bernie, like, oh, that's a unicorn. It's a pipe dream. We shouldn't have that. We can't have that. We can't do it. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's the way it used to be. We did it for years that way. This is nonsense.
I'd like to, I want to read some comments. I'll start with somebody hating on me, which is always my favorite. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing. Ajamu. No, Jordan, you're wrong. You are committing the multiracial working class to a dead end. I'd love to know
what part is wrong. Yeah,
I'd love to know sincerely how, because my point actually is, I think that if people want to, be just totally black or white, some channels take their position, third party, some neither. That's fine. To me, neither of these is going to lead to what we want quickly. I think if people are being objective, a third party or taking over the Democratic Party, if you can, they're not going to get us universal health care in the next 5 years. I don't think so. They're not going.
Can I just say they also have some of the same inherent problems? Just because somebody's a Green Party candidate doesn't mean they cannot possibly be terrible or full of corruption as well. My point is that we need to get to a spot where we judge individuals by what they're doing, what they're saying, and the policies that they support, and that can come in both packages.
Right.
I mean, the systemic problems we have in the country don't disappear if they're a third-party candidate. They just don't.
But I guess
I don't think anyone's suggesting.
Oh, go ahead,
I don't think anyone's suggesting they do. I mean, I think it just.
Some people do, Ron, because they literally say, I will never vote for a Democrat again. Fuck the Democrats. They're dead to me. I'm not voting for them. I mean, that's a position you can take, fine, but I'm saying it's not realistic. If there was a good candidate and they happen to be running with a D after the name, why wouldn't you support them? That makes no sense.
So I guess what I was trying to say, and I'll give you an example, Ron. So obviously Amazon was victorious in Staten Island. It was great. You know, we covered it here the entire time. Then they had a second election a month later at a smaller one on Staten Island. They lost. There was a lot of union busting. Okay. Then they had a third one in Albany. About 600 warehouse workers up in Albany. And there was barely a drop of attention on it. I mean, I went up to cover the rally. There were people from the Amazon warehouse there. There wasn't really media coverage on the fact that there was another Amazon union election. There was really no organizing going on other than Christian Smalls on the Amazon labor union itself and the workers in this warehouse. There wasn't any institutional organizing like I'm talking about of a leftist organizing infrastructure to get attention on the fact that there was another winnable Amazon union election. One of the reasons that they were so successful in Staten Island was, it sounds simple, but it's not, an amazing social media campaign, TikTok videos that they did. It actually convinced a lot of the young people that worked in the Staten Island warehouse because of the great social media they were doing about Amazon's union busting, which then other media was picking up. Basically, there was no buzz at all, no attention on this second Amazon union election. Amazon had an army of consultants in that warehouse scaring the living shit out of these workers. Ultimately, they lost by 200 votes. My point is, without an actual organized infrastructure, state to state, city to city, we have a bunch of satellite groups. You got Justice Democrats, which I'm not so pleased with. You got Sunrise Movement. They've done some good things, but I'm not so pleased with. You know, there's a bunch of different groups that have their objective. There's no, and there probably has never been in any of our lifetimes, an organized infrastructure among the progressive movement to focus on the actual opportunities when we get them, like Amazon union elections, like eviction fights. You know, you have isolated tenant unions. So to me, the problem is we don't have, and another problem which is connected is, one of the problems, Zana, you know this, is local and state elections. Forget the candidate. Good luck. Good luck if more than 20% of the fucking community even know there's election, even know there is an election happening, even know that who their congressperson is. Most of them are checked out. That's why this ongoing continual network, not just during election times, but all the time, with local organizing, creating economic hubs, mutual aid, those kind of things. That is why that when the bat signal goes out, hey, we got to fight, Amazon's up for an election in Albany, or hey, we got to protest here, this and that. We don't have that right now. We just have basically everybody living on their own islands, pissed off at, you know, Bernie lost again. Bernie isn't doing what he should do. The squad sold us out, this and that. People need to start getting involved in the fights that are happening. Another small example, last year when Striketober was happening, I went out to cover the John Deere strikes in Iowa and Illinois. There wasn't any media there. Other than the local media, there wasn't any national media. I didn't even see indie media covering it much. I won't get into channels, but I asked the lead organizer, have you tried to get on with other shows? They told me the shows. They said they haven't gotten a response. So my point is, there are like winnable victories for labor, and there is a domino effect for everybody else. Just because you don't work at Amazon, if Amazon starts unionizing more warehouses, you will see an effect in other areas of your life. If the second largest company in America starts becoming a union shop, trust me, it will have a domino effect from there. These tenants unions that are popping up, I've spoken with them. They have a hard time getting media attention. So yes, I'm long-winded. You're right. But the point is, don't just focus on let's start a third party or fuck the Democratic Party. All those are great. I don't really care which one you choose. You got to get involved on the organizing end. And then some people say, what do you mean by organizing? Literally, if you work 2 jobs and you don't have time, totally understand that. But one thing you can do is get involved in your community. Maybe you can't show up at meetings, but you can phone bank for certain causes. There are local opportunities, community to community, to boycott that oppressive grocery store who's screwing the workers during a pandemic, to boycott the local bank that is screwing everybody, but particularly minorities. I see boycotts of Amazon for the first day of the month. That's not going to do anything, folks. One day boycotts don't do anything. So I'd like to see more of the organizing groups actually focus on economic organizing, not just let's have a Medicare for all march. That's great. It's not a threat to anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, well, I mean, yeah, we're covering a lot of ground here. And again, like to reiterate, like I do think that all of these things we've mentioned, especially localism, is infinitely more important than, you know, like third party versus dem enter, than just electoralism in general. And if we're on the topic of electoralism, I always say the most important level is local. Local affects you by far the most. It is by far the most important, and it is where you actually have a chance at winning. We're really learning that here in Los Angeles, especially. Yeah. You really have a chance at winning. The real estate developers figured that out a long freaking time ago. It's time for the rest of us to catch up because they know what they can do, making these cities their playgrounds. It's time for us to fight back. So I'm totally with you there.
Ron, let me just point out on the local level, go ask the people of Buffalo right now. I think 40 people have died.
Holy shit, right?
India Walton, as the mayor in Buffalo, could have made a difference because she would have prepared for the type of blizzards they're having. So you're right. It could actually make a life and death difference.
And look at how dirty they did her.
They did her.
I mean that was just like freaking ridiculous. And look, you know, I'm not one of these people where I'm just like that, you know, hyper tribal about it all, where I'm just like, if someone has this next to their name, I'm out. Hey, one of the few endorsements I gave this past election cycle was Fatima Iqbal Zubair. She ran as a Democrat. You know why? Because the way state assembly works here in California, you have no choice, really. If you want any chance at all, the way the system is set up right now, you pretty much have to run as a Democrat. We have it to the point where Republicans will register as Democrats because they know that's the only way. We basically have a monolithic uni party here in California. That's it. Because Rick
Caruso? Is that who you're referring to?
Well, technically no, because mayor's nonpartisan. But yeah, like you just see it all the time because the way our system works is we have jungle primaries and stuff like that.
Parties, that was my point.
He did switch parties, and it's because you need to get those endorsements. So yeah, like you really, you know, Fatima, the party just screwed her over left and right and hung her out to dry every opportunity they had. But she had no choice but to run within the party if she wanted any chance of victory. And she faced mountains and mountains of corporate money. When she first started building a movement, they redistricted her, which is the same thing they did to Summer Lee over in Pennsylvania. The irony there for me on a personal level is that my parents used to live in Summer Lee's district, and I live in Fatima's district. So you see the same dirty tricks, you know, miles and miles away across the frickin' country. So, you know, I think that those are the rules that so desperately need to change. You know, and the reason that I'm willing to, you know, be definitive in saying like, yes, I would rather see those efforts go more into third parties than towards them entering is because we are still the smallest group politically in the country. We're not as small as we thought we were. Bernie did show us that in 2016, which I'm glad he did. But we're still by far the smallest group politically. So we only have so many resources. We only have so much energy. And I just think that if every single, especially imagine if every single person who lived in a decided state. Now, some people, they say safe state. I don't like to use that phrase because I don't think there's anything safe about the Electoral College. I call it a decided state. Whether you live in a decided blue state or a decided red state, if everyone who lived in a decided state voted third party, if that was more reflexive of their views, whether it be the Green Party or even the Libertarians, somebody would get to 5%. Somebody would get there. And, you know, another example I'll throw out there. So up in Maine, they have ranked choice voting up there. Lisa Savage ran for Senate as an independent. Technically, she was a Green, but she was registered as an independent because something got screwy there. I don't remember all the details. But so Lisa Savage, independent Green, ran for Senate in Maine. She did not win. But because they had ranked choice voting, the duopoly candidates weren't able to just make it all about like, hey, I'm not as shitty as this person. Vote for me. They had to actually talk about issues. Lisa got a lot more press coverage than she would have otherwise. Lisa got invited to all of the debates. So because of Lisa, the Democrat had to address things like the Green New Deal. The Democrat had to address things like Medicare for All, things that the Democrat would have avoided otherwise. So imagine if something like that happened all over the country.
Ranked choice voting would be great.
Yeah, it wouldn't be an automatic path to victory. I mean, all of these are very, very heavy lifts. No one's disputing that. But I feel like if electoralism is your lane and we put all of our efforts into changing the rules, getting money out of politics and ranked choice voting, which who is leading those efforts? Largely the Green Party and other third-party efforts. If those efforts were the most heavily amplified, is it still a very long and heavy lift? Abso-freaking-lutely.
It's a catch-22 because you got to elect the people to get that stuff done. And they're not going to let us.
No, which brings me back to why some of these enter people matter. The progressive wing of the Democratic Party is also very much pushing for ranked choice voting, and they also have had some successes getting that passed. And there's no way these efforts would work without their support as well.
I think this point is
I
also
don't know.
important.
I mean,
open primaries is also.
I agree.
Yes.
I am a big fan of open primaries. Huge fan of open primaries. 100%.
Yeah,
I think
that increases democracy as well.
I think most of the credit for this, though, goes to ballot initiatives around those issues when they get ranked choice voting on the ballot via a grassroots effort, which, again, is outside of electoralism. And, you know, and again, look, I'm not saying that the Green Party is perfect by any means. There's plenty of things about the Green Party that pisses me off. But, you know, the Green Party, I think, doesn't get the credit that they're due when it comes to ranked choice voting. They have pushed for that very hard, and they have seen some success. No, I know no one here is, but just speak in general. You know, I think a lot of times they're kind of a lightning rod because they are, you know, like the biggest left-wing third party that we have. So I think sometimes they get a lot of lightning that they don't deserve. Again, not to say they don't have their problems. They totally do. But look, over 100 Greens hold office across the country. Yeah. And, you know, they won their first election within 5 years of forming. And that was before they had the internet. That was in like 1991 or whatever it was, 92 or something. So, you know, I think that, you know, when we have these limited resources, and again, I have a lot of friends and colleagues who are like Dementer people. Well, some of my friends asked me to join one of their slates, and I'm like, look, I want to see you guys succeed. And, you know, especially like someone like Fatima, I'm like, look, no matter what is next to your name, I will always vote for you and always support you. But I kind of feel like it's like watching people running into a burning building, you know, Ron, and I just wish we put all of our energy elsewhere.
Can I push back on one thing that you said?
Yeah, go ahead. You can push back on all of it.
Actually, I agree with you, so I'm not going to push back. But there is one thing. You had said that we were the minority. Right? If you take the labels off, what you'll see is statistically looking at it, 79% of people have fled the voting rolls for either party.
That's right. Most people are independent now. You're not wrong.
One of the number one polled things in the country is corporate corruption and tired of both parties, and both parties are basically the same. Another thing that's number one polled in the country, even 46% of Republicans support universal health care, universal child care, tuition-free college. We are the majority. Abortion was made to be 50-50. It's not. It's 11% to 89% in favor of pro-choice. I'm sure there's some people that want some restrictions on. There's a little gray area there, but pro-choice, 89%. We are the majority. The problem is the minority are the ones in leadership roles. The minority are leading this organization. The people who are millionaires, the people who haven't struggled a day in their damn life and they've never talked to a voter and they don't know how to talk to poor people. I hear these pundits all the time saying things about poor people, and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, that's not what it's like. That's not what poor people think. I've been on the phone. I could get on the phone with somebody who's conservative in West Virginia, right? And I can start up a conversation with them. And I can say, so your kid is in, do you have kids? And they say, yeah. And I say, okay. So, what if your kid wanted to go to school to be a doctor? What if they wanted to go to school to be a lawyer and they can't? And, right now they have all these barriers up. Well, my kid should be able to go to school to be anything they damn well want to be. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Shouldn't our tax dollars go to that? Yes. And then I say, how hard was it? Or do you have insurance at all? How hard is it for you to get a primary care physician? Can you get a PCP? Because I know I can't. I've been calling for months and I can't get one. And they say, it's impossible. I can't get in to see nobody, blah, blah, blah. And so then the conversation goes into, they actually support universal health care. They might be MAGA and they support universal health care. And here's the thing. What we see online, the fringes that we see because the algorithms and everything, those are the fringes. MAGA is the fringe. They're the rich elite. They're not the poor blue collar workers. There are some that are.
Are you implying there's a world beyond Twitter? Because I'm going to have to dispute that. No, you're absolutely right.
I forget, Ron, but yes.
Yeah, right. What we all. No, you're 100% right. And yeah, I guess I think the challenge that still does exist, though, and I guess that's like kind of more what I meant was like there's still a huge messaging hurdle to overcome here. Yeah. Because I think everything you said is 100% right on, and I don't disagree with any of it. But I do think that there is still a very, very thick layer of propaganda that we still need to cut through as a society, where like, even though a lot of people would rather see these policies in our world, they're still going to get scared off real quick by the Fox Newses, the CNNs, and the MSNBCs of the world. That's going to tell you that we just can't have the healthcare system that works everywhere else in the industrialized world. For some reason, it just wouldn't work here. And we see it time and time again. We see the cycle repeat every so often. I do think the tide is starting to turn. In 2008, when you said the word single payer, a lot of people still weren't ready to hear it. I do think that has changed now.
I think that's definitely changed. Yeah,
it's happening, but I think we still got a thick layer to poke a hole in.
You actually kind of stole my thunder because, and by the way, breaking news, I put up a poll.
Okay.
Yes, I love these polls.
With the simple, do we want to see more Zana on Status Coup? An overwhelming 92% say yes. And the 8%, I don't know, must be.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
More like the hate percent.
Yes. So 92% want to see more Zana. So we'll have to make it happen. I was going to say, Ron, I think that people answer this question, and I don't mean this in a condescending way. I really, truly mean it. People answer this question emotionally because people are hurting. If you're not fed up with the Democratic Party, you're not paying attention. People answer this like based on their visceral disgust, hatred for the Democratic Party. But you have to answer this based on, obviously your gut feel, but also actually have a strategy and a plan, whichever, whether it's running a third party candidate, running as a Democrat, or fucking running as a glow in the dark alien. How are you going to win? Because I'm not for vanity campaigns running as independent just to make a point. I don't think we have time for that. Yeah. The people that were saying, well, it's got to start somewhere, Jordan, and Nina Turner should have ran in the bluest district in all of Ohio as an independent, and if she lost by 50, whatever, at least we would have got the ball rolling. I don't know. Tell that to the candidate who has to spend a year and a half of their life running.
I talked to Nina's team about this. Only only what is it? 17% of her community votes. So it's all the older neoliberals.
Yeah.
If they had done a massive voter drive and she had run as independent, she might have been able to bring out the 42% in her district that want to go independent and have lost faith in both parties. I love Nina, but that is one point that I have to push back on. If she had ran independent, she may have actually gotten more momentum. I was the one in Knock Down the House that was behind the scenes telling Paula Jean, next time run independent. That was me.
That was you.
Because honestly, people are so tired of the two-party system that if you market it right and you're out there and you're going to college campuses, you're talking to the youth and you're doing voter registration drives and you're getting out the vote, independents can win. Third parties can be built. The problem is that the spoiler lie about spoiling the vote is part of the problem. And the second one is that it's a mythos. It's not true.
It's a myth. Yeah, no, it's also really undemocratic. I hate it when people say that. No party is entitled to a vote. No candidate is entitled to a vote. You have to earn votes. It's a democracy. What's left of it.
But
why do you hate Hillary so much, Tina?
I would be.
How much time do you have?
I would be totally thrilled to have egg on my face. Trust me. If you were right, all I've seen in campaigns is the opposite. Is those diehard, and it's on the Republican side too. The diehard vote from PTA level to president every election. Baby boomers come out, and there hasn't been that voter registration, messaging to college students. Bernie, a little bit. If there was, maybe they could have a shot.
Because we got a bunch of out of touch people trying to talk to people and message to them, and they don't know how to talk to people, and they ain't going to the places, and they go to the rich neighborhoods, they go to the fancy places, they go to where the donors are. They don't go out here talking to people like me. They don't go to the trailer parks. They don't go to the college campuses. They don't bring in Gen Z and Gen Y. They're not bringing millennials in. And so we're not voting.
Non-voters are the biggest block of voters in the country.
Yeah. Well,
and if somebody wants to win a campaign, and this is why, honestly, this is why President Bernie, see, I'm making him president now. This is why Bernie Sanders did experience a lot of his successes, because he was bringing in non-voters. Here in the state of California, that first cycle, I think he registered close to 1 million new voters with the campaign, because they did. Part of their initial thing when they came to the state of California was to go out and register college students, register young voters to vote. And they were very successful in that. Didn't win the state, but we could get into that another day.
I think this is a good comment. I'd love to get your thoughts, because I don't know if I agree, but both parties are traitors. Says it's not just about winning. It's about building another choice. Nina's a nice person, but should have run outside the duopoly. What do you think about that? Yeah, obviously we all want to win, but building the infrastructure to have more choices.
I think we've got to do both. And that little girl meme right now, why can't we have both?
I think we got to build that infrastructure to win. But I do think it's like, the left has been losing in this country for pretty much a century, literally. I'm so sick of losing. I'm just so sick of losing. I want to see some wins. But, you got to be strategic about how to get those wins. But at the same point, we don't have time for gross incrementalism. So I know we're not going to flip our electoral world, instantaneously, no matter what. I think we all agree that is impossible, because it is. But, it's just a matter of, trying to get those victories and trying to win in the margins as quickly as possible, and doing so definitively. And, just the idea, I mean, what continues to just frustrate me. I mean, look, we've been asking people, especially, folks that are more on the Dementer side, we bring up the fact that, hey, the squad isn't working as a block. That's we're not asking them to take over everything. We understand they're outnumbered, but they got to work as a freaking block. They're refusing to do it. What do? No one's been able to answer that question. Well, we just got to hold them to account. And if we'll just replace the people who don't. Okay, so we went through all this effort to get these 6 people. Now we're already working on replacing them. At this rate, by like 2093, maybe we're going to have 10 people whose votes we can count on. I mean, that's freaking nuts. So, I mean,
yeah,
you know, I'm not, you know, and Jordan, you kind of said this too, and I do agree. I'm not into symbolic gestural things or just like I'm gonna make a statement or just no, like I'm here to freaking win and I want to win, and that's what frustrates me. Again, like I'll bring up the example with my district in Fatima. Look, you know, I knew Fatima was in it to win it. That's why I supported her.
Oh, she definitely was.
And she was great. You interviewed her, and yeah, your guys' interview was awesome, by the way, and she's great. My thing is, I just wish we had a society where she didn't have to run as a Democrat.
Right.
I wish there was something else available to her. And I think that's
so
just...
What if I have a really radical idea. What if we didn't have political parties at all and people just ran for office?
That'd be dope.
I wish. That would be the best. That's why I say more people run independent, because if we get more people independent on the ballot, then maybe we can start shifting people to think more that way. But no matter who's elected, no matter how much we vet them in the beginning, no matter how much we believed in them or went and knocked doors for them or supported them, we have to be able to hold them accountable once they're elected too. So I think part of the problem is that people vote and then they think we go and we're voting, we're won and we're done, when we need to be doing the things that Jordan's talking about, is putting those economic impacts, putting those pressure points. Heck, go and organize and sit in a parking lot at Whole Foods and block the rich people from going and getting their groceries for one day and have a call to action with it. Make people uncomfortable. I'm serious. Things like this and thinking outside of the box. We're boxed in how we organize, and we're not thinking outside of the box anymore. And it's either rally, do a fundraiser, do social media, and or have a justice parade is what I call them, that never goes anywhere, like the pink hats marches that the women's march did, that did nothing, and now we've got Roe versus Wade reversed. So we do have to think outside the box.
I also think part of it also is like, I think a lot of people want to have a one size fits all strategy in terms of messaging, when the reality is all politics is local. So like, I'm not happy that John Fetterman, for example, flip-flopped on fracking. If he didn't flip-flop on fracking and he ran on banning fracking, I don't think he would have won in the state of Pennsylvania. That's just the truth. I don't like it, but that's the reality based on how big of an economic force it is there. People could say what they want. A lot of people got mad at me, but Nina Turner, for example, I actually
think he still would have won, to tell you the truth. I mean, we'll never know, but I actually think people liked him, man. People liked him. And if Oz
was like, come on now.
I think fracking is such a big part of, I think it's, other than Texas, number 2, that I think people probably would have eaten coup d'etat, whatever it was with Dr. Oz.
Yeah, but here's the thing, man.
Coup d'etat.
They've also seen the effects from it in Pennsylvania. Like they've seen like how it's just sort of like a short-term thing that ends up screwing you in the long run. I mean, they've lived that firsthand in that state. I'm from there. I think that if he ran on an economic message where we're going to invest in green energy, and that's the future, and it's going to be a sustainable job. It's not going to be these temporary fracking wells that only go so far and they screw us over in the process. Yeah. I think he would have won, and I think people would have really grabbed onto that. I mean, keep in mind, Pennsylvania is also, the home to Rachel Carson. There's definitely an environmental mindset there. It's Appalachia.
We're tired of fracking. Well, get out of our backyard. Stop fracking. Stop.
I think he still would have won. That's all I'm saying.
Interestingly enough, on the exit polls in Pennsylvania, I believe abortion was number 1 over inflation. So that, for whatever reason, seemed to take number 1. But my other point is, another reason he went more than most Democrats into red rural areas, and he did better in those areas. He beat Biden's presidential campaign in red rural areas. He wouldn't have done that if he was ranting about a lot of the things we want. So I'm not saying, hey, sell out to get elected. My point is, like Nina Turner, for example, everybody was like, she should run against Biden in the Democratic Party. Well, I don't know. I was in Cleveland twice. I could tell you that wouldn't have been a very popular campaign strategy in Cleveland. It would have won like the online left if she ran scorched earth. I think that's a better idea nationally. Like, I think Bernie made a mistake when they made Zephyr Teachout take down that column calling Joe Biden corrupt. I think that was a mistake nationally, because I think that's it's easier to run nationally against the corrupt. Look what Trump did. He was full of shit, but he ran against the, Goldman Sachs and the deep state and the corrupt puppet politicians that I bought off. It was pretty popular nationally. I think Bernie wasn't willing to go for the jugular, but on the local level, in some areas that love them Nancy Pelosi or love them Jim Clyburn or whatever, it might not be the best strategy. So,
you'll see, Jordan, that those polls and who is polled, even for exit polling and stuff, it's that we're basing like our politics in this country, and I've said this a lot, on voting rolls, like who voted, like what's a red state, what's a blue state,
versus who did
voted the last 10 years. When most people don't vote, so it's not statistically accurate, to a reflection of who we are.
I agree with you, Zana.
That's why Shama Shawant was able to do what she did, because they did amazing voter drives. Shama Shawant makes some of the most perfect arguments for a third party and for running independent, because she's spot on right, because she's always talking about how most people don't vote. And if we can get those people out that don't vote, we can win. And that we have to stop focusing on, not to push back, Jordan, but we have to stop focusing on the people who are voting. We need to still talk to them, yes, but that's who we can't. I've worked where everyone bases their call time on what is the Democratic NGP van?
I was just going to bring that up, Zana. This is like so problematic. They focus on voters that they know vote every single cycle, whether it's a primary or a general election. They have this data, right? Every party does. And they send out, they have paid canvassers that they pay to go door to door. And the people that they focus on are the ones that they know have voted in every single election. Those are their target audience. They ignore the non-voters. And this is crazy to me, because I think you're right. The biggest voting bloc out there is the non-voters. You bring those people in to vote and you win an election. It's so crystal clear. I don't know why more people don't tap into that strategy.
Well,
and you could still get donations, small dollar donations. You could still run your engines, and you can run cheap. Like I researched Middle Seat. Have you guys heard about Middle Seat? They were founded by, I think you've heard of them, Jordan. I think I've mentioned them to you before. I was working on a story. Middle Seat? Were founded, Middle Seat, SEAT. They were founded by Zach Exley and ex-Bernie Sanders staffers. They've now made almost $70 million off Justice Democrats and progressive candidates. They made $8 million in this cycle off John Fetterman alone. And all they are is a marketing company. They just do comps. Really? The stuff that I did for candidates for free as a volunteer,
they're getting paid for.
They're getting paid, like they got paid by Beto's campaign $30 million.
And they're doing canvassing?
Well, no. What a great investment. He always cleans up in elections, that Beto.
Fundraising, social media, and ads. Yeah. They make Beto look progressive. That was their whole
they have entire companies devoted to doing paid canvassing and ballot harvesting and whatnot now. Like it's this growing industry.
When I was in, you mentioned Shama Sawant, and I think that's a really good point. When I was in Seattle a couple of years ago, I was covering kind of how Amazon created a fucking homeless disaster zone in Seattle. But Shama Sawant, one thing she's done outside of just the voter drives, she's very active on the community level. Like she's constantly going to community meetings. She shows up to activist meetings. She's not really so separate as most politicians are from the activist base. She's kind of what we thought like AOC and these others would be, which is activating the activist base who would show up for you because you're showing up for them. When I was there, I think I was there for a week. She was there. I think it was for a housing meeting with local people because one specific complex was hiking rates so high. I mean, she's present all the time. Granted, she's not like a congressperson, so she doesn't have to show up for votes on that level. But she was one with the activist community, and that's why even against Amazon literally for local city council elections, they were pouring in millions of dollars to try and remove her in her normal elections and then recall campaigns. But she actually activates the base, whereas the elected progressives, they seem to kind of be allergic to their, like Cori Bush, for example. I met her when I covered protests in St. Louis years ago. She was like an activist. She was out there every night for like 30 days when they were protesting after the murder of Anthony Lamar Smith, another black man that was killed unarmed by police. But she gets there and it's like, it's not necessarily that they're corrupt. I don't think they're corrupt. They just succumb to the power and the pressure and the long game. Oh, it's a long game. You know, your activism was good before, but let me tell you how it is inside. Kind of that. But like, if they would do more of what Shamus want, listen, we just had a pandemic. If they would have activated the base, even during a pandemic, you could have got a couple thousand people in front of the White House demanding expanded health care during this pandemic. Easy. You could have got, kudos to AOC for protesting Roe. That's easy. Where was she protesting Biden? One of the biggest scandals that nobody even mentions. He didn't just take over the patent from Moderna and Pfizer. I don't want to get into COVID because it triggers some people, but we could have shared the formula with the rest of the world. Right. A lot of these variants are starting in under-vaccinated countries. They have literally warehouses where they're ready to go, but these companies wouldn't share the formula. Ralph Nader said it's within the president's emergency powers during a health emergency to seize those patents, which, by the way, we paid for. There was no protest
from funded by taxpayer dollars, so
right. There was no protest.
Where are they on this omnibus bill? Where are they on this last military budget spending, which was the highest that we've ever spent for insane things? Why are they not down in Atlanta? I know that that's not her district, but why isn't everybody down in Atlanta protesting Cop City? Because that's going to be used as a model of militarization and privatization of police training. It's a freaking city that's being built on native land where they're training police. They're building a helipad there for Blackhawks.
Oh my God.
It's insane. So why aren't these representatives showing up for this? Where's Stacey Abrams? No one's seen Stacey on Cop City. Where is she?
Which, by the way, I'm obviously not going right now. I have a newborn, but we are trying to find somebody to go down there. So we might cover that on the ground. If you don't know Cop City, there's been activists protesting, even in like the forest, to block this police training center from being built on indigenous land. But I think that we should definitely extend this conversation to the new year. There's going to be people who say, we're all sellouts and, whatever. I think we all kind of, I actually, if you put a gun to my head,
Who is that? Is that your dog?
If you put a gun to my head, I actually side more with Ron as far as building a third party. But to me, and the people that are advocating for third party don't want to answer this, or they don't have an answer. To me, the reality is it doesn't matter if it's a third party or it's still trying in the Dem party or it's make up a third option. If you don't answer those three things, number one, how are you going to get some of the normie people? And those normie people have been convinced against third parties. They've been Ralph Naderized. And if you want to counteract those normie Democrats or Republicans to voting for your third party, if you don't want to take that option, then you have to do what Zana says. And you have to figure out a way to unprecedented mobilization of non-voters, which is not easy either. I'm just being realistic.
No, it's not easy. You have to have the right candidate to do that. The only reason Bernie Sanders' campaign was able to do that because they had Bernie Sanders, right?
Right.
Somebody that is not a candidate like Bernie Sanders isn't going to motivate those voters. It has to be somebody with that skill set, that all of it, the package. So, and I don't see anybody in politics right now that even comes close to him.
Right.
And it's a problem.
And to me, so you have to answer that question. How do you get the most consistent voters to give you a look? And if you're going to say, fuck them, we're going to get young people out or we're going to get non-voters out, great. Show me the way. And I'm there to cover it. Two.
I can help. I can answer these questions, Jordan.
Number two, I'll tell you, because I've seen it in the flesh, the media is the ultimate super PAC. The media is the ultimate super PAC, whether it's crushing Bernie 2 times or crushing third parties. Right. We don't have anything close to a comparable media. We have a bunch of leftists kind of sitting on their own island, in most cases, trying to cancel one another, in my opinion. So until you have a strategy to either break through the media blackout, which I think Matthew Ho did a little bit in North Carolina, or counteract the media propaganda, I think Bernie, frankly, did a poor job in these media interviews. I think he had bad advice from old dinosaur consultants in 2016, telling him to play nice to get booked in the media. I think he should have been more adversarial in these interviews with CNN and MSNBC.
Yeah, I think he did a better job in 2016 and a poor job in 2020.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, I think he did a shitty job both times, but yeah.
No. I feel you. I feel you. But I feel like in 2016 he was more kind of like, yes, I'm an outsider, and yes, we need more. We need new solutions.
Ron, if I'm on 60 Minutes as Bernie Sanders and Anderson Cooper, terrible accent, is asking me about Fidel Castro, I turn to Anderson and say, Anderson, I know you want a soundbite, but I'm running for president of the United States, not Cuba. You could do a segment on Cuba another day. Let me tell you, viewers, why I'm going to protect their Social Security. Let me tell you, viewers, why they've been fed some things about me that might not be true. I'm not here to talk about Cuba, okay? And I know that his campaign aides that were watching, that's how they wanted it to react, because they knew what the media was going to do. But to me, whether you're running as third party, which I'm totally fine with, and that's fine, or you're running as Dem or anything else, you have to figure out how to break through. And I think Ron or whoever said it is right. It's not sexy. It doesn't get the coverage. There's a lot more opportunities on a local and state level. And not only is that good, but if you can win on the local and state level, then you have a case to make nationally. Look at the examples here where progressives have won, what they've accomplished to make a case nationally. Hey, it's working on the local level if you're running as a national candidate. So, but like I said, if more people don't get involved outside the electoral politics, and my mind has shifted on this. I think more in the beginning when I first covered this stuff, I was more on the electoral end. But now, since I've covered the same protests over and over and over and over again, I'll still cover them. I mean, it matters to be out there and make sure people know that these are happening, but it's the same strategy. There's no different strategy with these protests. You could do direct actions till you're blue in the face. They'll let you. If there's no threat behind the direct action, it's just a protest, You need a threat. Because to me, why did the Yellow Vest movement, why did they have success? Besides the fact that they're more comfortable protesting, because if they get fired, they still have health care. That's a big thing in France.
Right.
But the Yellow Vest movement was successful because they came with threats.
Scared the crap out of the economic system. Yeah, 100%.
And that's not easy here. I understand for a lot of people who are listening, they're going to say, Jordan, I'm working 2 jobs. I don't have time to go out. I can't leave my kids to go out. I'll never forget my last reporting trip. I was talking to somebody in West Virginia. She said, I don't have gas to go to the protest. I don't have money for gas to go to the protest. A lot of people are in that position. It's not easy to do the things we're talking about. But until people start locally creating these organizing hubs, I think we're going to be having the same conversations over and over again.
The right wing, we need to look at them and learn from them, because they have been successful at the local level. They have been successful at the federal level. And you know what? People always act like the Democratic Party and the Democrats are out there. They're the real grassroots party. That's bullshit.
It's bullshit.
I'll tell you firsthand. Republicans, one thing people say is they say, and this isn't true, they say Democrats, promise us nice things, and Republicans, we just know that they're awful. That's not true. In a lot of local Democrats definitely do promise us things and don't keep them, but both parties do. And in some places, both parties are promising the same thing. In Kentucky, the Republicans that are running, they're promising health care. They're promising jobs. They're promising to fund our state universities and our state colleges. They're promising to get cheaper housing for us. They're making what sounds like, leftist or progressive promises. People don't realize this. And you know what else they're doing? They're knocking the doors in the poor areas. They're going to the trailer parks. They're registering new voters. They're not, you're right, Jordan. The voters who vote more regularly need to be reached out to. But Republicans actively are constantly organized to recruit, and they're strategic. They'll do a ballot initiative if it's the most strategic to help them with their gerrymandering or to help them with whatever it is that helps them get through. They will vote in somebody like Trump so that they could get all those court justices sat and the Supreme Court sat. They are strategic. The left is not. We are missing strategy, and it has to be all, in my opinion, it has to be all the things. Where is the smartest thing that can make the most impact? If you look at some of the ballot initiatives in the states that can have ballot initiatives, because only 26 can, there were some major ballot initiative victories this last election cycle. If you look at some independents ran this last election cycle and won by some of the tactics you were talking about, Jordan, but it is possible. But if we're not strategic about it, like you were saying, if we're not organizing locally, if we're not working with the unions, if we're not working with the on-the-ground co-ops and we're not bringing new people in, then we can't. To me, the biggest thing we have to stop doing on the left is gatekeeping from what they call the PMC class, the managerial class. They keep the poor people out. They don't let us talk. They don't give us a voice. They keep us out, and they talk at us like they know better than us. And the right wing doesn't do that. They just don't. I'm sorry. But the left does it. They're elitist and they're up on a high horse. And until they get off that high horse and they let somebody up and they let people up and move up in the ranks and take leadership roles and organize around the poor people, letting the poor people lead, the people that are suffering, the people that are hurting, we're not going to get anywhere. All this other stuff is just talk until we're able to do that. Because I felt like the Democrats have been talking at me for the last 40 years. That's why I never liked the Democratic Party. They were the smug elite party, right?
They didn't used to be. I mean,
elitists telling me that stuff.
I think they have for years.
They have in the modern time, yes. But I'm saying really a great read on what you're talking about right now is Thomas Frank's book, What's the Matter with Kansas?
Right.
That's a good book.
Before you guys keep going, but I have to go kind of allow my wife to sleep, so I got to go watch the baby. But we're gonna play some of the on-the-ground reporting we've done this year. I think we're about 4.5 years old, Status Coup. A lot of the things we've talked about in this show, you're about to see in the flesh through the reporting we did. Some of it's Tina, a lot of it was me, some of it's Louis DeAngelis, who started with us this year as a freelance reporter. I'm not beyond begging. You might not have it now because Christmas and Hanukkah just passed. But if you watch the reporting we've done, and we hope to continue to do, please consider signing up as a member if you're not a member yet. I know there's a whole lot of channels that, ask you to support them. Obviously, support whoever you think is important. But I can tell you objectively, as fact, we are one of the only outlets that is across the country, bare bones budget. I'm not lying to you. There's no Soros ain't funding us. The Koch brother is not funding us. The Democratic Party is not funding us. The Republicans are not funding us. We're losing money on most reporting trips, and it's becoming harder and harder. I'm just being honest, to fund the reporting trips because it costs a lot. That's why most people don't do it. It's a lot less expensive just to kind of give your take from a studio or from your home, and I'm not knocking that. But just this year, we were able, in January, we broke another story on the Flint water cover-up in The Guardian. That was the fourth story that we broke within the last 2 years. And the only reason we've been able to break it is because I was able to go to Flint, thanks to you guys, and build sources. It's not easy to, Tina could tell you this, she works on investigative reporting. And a lot of stories, like they're not going to fax you the stuff. They want to meet you. And the way to build sources and obtain information, you got to build trust. I've been to Flint almost 20 times. I'm not doing it for my health. And trust me, contrary to what some others say, it's not making me rich covering Flint, Michigan. I do it because I care. And I have a problem with the community being poisoned and then left to die. And it covered up. So we broke a really important story in January. Then we went to go to Florida. I knew it wasn't going to get views, but I felt it was right to go down and cover the Don't Say Gay bill. I agree with Ron. I think Ron DeSantis is much more dangerous than Donald Trump. I think if he became president, if you like what you see in Florida, think about it. A culture war across the land on steroids. And we went down there and covered LGBTQ students who are suicidal, who are depressed, who are being bullied on top of this bill. Now this bill is putting gag orders. I read it. Most others didn't. I read it twice. This bill puts a gag order on students and teachers to even identify if they have a same-sex partner, two moms, two dads, to even talk about it. We went down and covered that. We covered the Amazon union campaign for a year before they won, before it was in vogue for all these media outlets to cover it. I was at the warehouse 7-8 times when it did not look like they were going to win. We did an economic reporting tour through 3 states in 8 days. We interviewed homeless people. We interviewed people struggling with rent, struggling with gas. We interviewed people living in slums where the floors were caving in. Shit was coming from the ceiling. Black mold all over the building. Maggots all over. We covered that. No other media locally was covering any of that. We were the first to cover it in their community. I mean, I could go on and on. We covered the Starbucks workers union drive. We were on the ground covering strikes for the Starbucks workers. Lewis covered the horrible Uvalde shooting. He was down there in Uvalde. I mean, John Farina, who does video, great photography, he got that amazing footage on January 6th. He was the first person live, and YouTube fucking took it down from our channel, which is still a scandal. He was the first channel live. We had 30,000 live viewers, thanks to him. He got the image of that police officer's head rammed into the door. He reported from Ukraine, and we had a lot of videos from the Ukraine war, thanks to him. He's been covering a water crisis in New York City. Lewis, for us, went down to Jackson, Mississippi, and covered the water crisis. People didn't know my wife was pregnant. That's part of why I wasn't traveling as much. I wanted to be there for my wife. But Lewis has been great, and we're going to continue to, if we have the money, pay Lewis and Tina and Ron. But we need more funding. Obviously, we weren't thrilled about it. We weren't excited about it, but we went to cover Fetterman versus Oz because we wanted to be on the ground for the midterms. I'm probably forgetting some stuff, but we've covered a lot with a little. We've covered a lot with very little resources. And as Colin could tell you, I'm fucking cheap. Contrary to some narratives out there, we penny pinch with your funding. We're not staying at the Four Seasons. We're not having expensive steak dinners. When you fund us,
Motel 6, baby.
The gas was expensive, and we drove for a lot of trips. This stuff is not cheap, and maybe it's corny, but I think we got to cover the fight, whether we win, whether we lose. You got to be out there covering the fight. That's not even to mention all the stuff we covered in previous years, the John Deere strikes, obviously Flint, so many things we've covered, homelessness around the country. I did 2 pandemic reporting tours when the pandemic was way worse. I think it's important. And to be clear, this kind of reporting, as Zana is finding out now, this kind of reporting does not get views on YouTube. This kind of reporting is not what's going to get clicks on YouTube. It's not going to go viral on Twitter. If I wanted to get the clicks on YouTube or go viral, we certainly would not be covering this stuff. YouTube's algorithm actually
media isn't going to cover it. They're never going to. I've been doing action and organizing for 20 years and trying to get people on the ground for not only races, but when I did non-electoral work, I was a domestic violence advocate, anti-domestic violence advocate, all kinds of different things during the fairness coalitions in the early 2000s, fighting for gay rights. People were not, for the LGBTQ plus community, people were not coming to cover these things. When it's real actions, they don't want to show up. It's too controversial. So we need more people on the ground covering this stuff.
We will blow up if we started changing and every day we started going after other channels and other hosts and drama. That's what gets clicks on YouTube. We're not going to do that because I don't have the time, I don't have the patience, and I'm not interested. If other people want to do that, have at it. I'm glad you're getting views. We're not going to do that because we actually want to cover what's happening on the ground and the important stuff. The other thing we would do really well if we just covered like fucking, I don't know, what's his face? Steven Crowder 24/7 or Jordan Peterson or Ben Shapiro and like the Right Wing Machine. We're not going to do that either. We're going to cover important stories. If we can be on the ground, great. If we can't, we're going to try to interview the people remotely. Ron's been doing that. Tina's been doing that. And we're going to try to continue to cover stories that I believe are covered up by the corporate media. So we'll play some of this. It's 15. We're not going to play the whole thing. It's a work in progress. But these are some of the highlights of our reporting from this year. If you can, if not today, if you're tapped out because of Christmas and Hanukkah, totally understand. If when you get that check, or maybe it's tax season or whatever, for $5 a month. That's our lowest level. You could be a member at $10 a month, $20 a month, or an annual member. This is how we fund the reporting. And what you see is what you get. We don't have any money from the big banks, the fossil fuckers, big pharma, big real estate, Silicon Valley, the military industrial complex. You might think $5 doesn't make a difference. It does. It makes a huge, huge difference. So yeah, if you can support us, statuscoup.com/join. Colin, let's show some of what we've worked on this year.
There was a complete blackout in terms of mainstream media. I see a lot of friendly faces here of people who've tried to get out the word over this period of time. Sources of independent journalists that have interviewed Stephen.
So Christian Smalls just came out.
Watch out, Captain! To the first union in American history.
Yeah! Does this feel kind of like vindication for you to have this kind of success?
Absolutely, yeah. Once again, this is justice for me, justice for Gerald, Derek, Jordan, Jason, Brett, everybody who's been fucked over by this company for the last 2 years. And this is all of our justice. So, damn right we feel like we're validated.
Do you feel like the progressive politicians, particularly AOC, Bernie, kind of abandoned you while supporting other workers?
I don't know. I mean, I can't really call it. I can't explain it either. This is once again questions that you have to ask them. Why they haven't supported their own constituents.
I've always hated the term like, oh, the economy's going so well, because more times than not, it means millionaires and billionaires are making record profits. It never means I can comfortably pay my bills.
But this is a message. This is a message for all the communities across the country that's going through the same thing we're going through right now. I'm going to address y'all directly. A statement of defiance needs to be had for those that are being displaced and put out in these streets. I'm addressing y'all directly right now. Stand up, because if you don't, you lose. We lose as a people if you do nothing.
And now it seems like Akron is hunting its own homeless. It doesn't matter where we go. If we put up a tent, they're there tearing it down. The little bit of personal belongings and memories that we had, Akron has bulldozed over.
Yet we're told, the news tells us the economy is coming back. And
show me where the economy is coming back, and I'll show you a population in the homeless camps that will astound you. It's sickening. There's more people coming every day. More people that are in need of our help. And it's getting to the point where I don't know how to help them anymore.
You know, there are people that take advantage of, and there are people that need it. Well, we need a place to live. We don't have anywhere else. We don't have nothing else.
It seems like poor people are singled out. It seems like we're hated. And I don't understand that. We're good people. We're just poor. I mean, we're not bad people just because we're poor, but we get treated that way. I don't understand what happened to America.
And I'm a vet. I served my country. I served in the Army I served 2 years, and I was in the reserve for 2 years. And I get done like this.
Out the bathroom, maggots forming in their utility rooms and termites. Right now, I just recently spoke about a tenant on city council 2 Mondays ago because her and her neighbor behind her, they have to knock on the bathroom wall when they use the bathroom because they can see each other through the bathroom because they don't have a tub or nothing.
Here we have this board over this, because if not, we will fall through here.
Wow.
There's this human waste coming down, and you see run down the wall, and who's causing the toilet to sink, which is not even mounted to the floor, as you can see. That's not even mounted.
Governor Greg Abbott said, we've poured billions of dollars into securing our schools. What's the result?
Right.
This is a 14-year-old child. That could have been anybody's child. That was put in a police car and kidnapped and abandoned on side the road. Like some old roadkill. When I signed for my child was dead. All right? The last time he was alive, he was in the sheriff's custody. The sheriff released him to nobody. Not his mama, not his daddy, not a coach, not a reverend, nobody. He's dead. And the last place we seen him was in your custody.
Yes, we call it the Don't Say Gay bill because it prohibits classroom instruction or inclusion of LGBTQ people, particularly sexual orientation or gender identity. So they're really singling us out, our community out.
And there's like layers and layers of cones shoved down underneath. And as you can see, like cars literally have to drive over this and there's nothing supporting the road. And I was informed by an engineer earlier that because there's multiple sewer caps here, there's actually a water main running right under this. And then we wonder why there's water problems. How long has this been like this?
It's been like this about 2 years.
I'm gonna try to get a little bit of a better view of some of this. I'm gonna kind of hold the microphone in here. Like, you can hear the water running under the road.
It's really bad out here.
Yeah.
I mean, we've gotten to a point where people can't even shower, so.
Yeah. It's United States of America, 2022. We got an entire city without clean drinking water for weeks on end.
Noticed the theme through this wasn't just about the racist remarks that these council members made, but also the fact they were engaging in power struggle gerrymandering to disenfranchise black voters. Is that the more egregious thing, in your opinion?
I think it's a combination of both. We see the rhetoric and we see their tactics that have been used throughout this city to keep suppressing the black and brown community.
Florida already has the highest LGBTQ suicide rate of any state. And queer teens are 4 times more likely to commit suicide. And they know that, because I said that and I was one of hundreds that said that, testifying in the Senate and the House of Representatives. I went door to door talking to senators and representatives, Republican and Democrat, telling them these statistics and telling them personal stories. They heard me, they listened, and they voted for it anyways, because they know what they're doing and they are trying to kill us.
The media put out, you're a small business, you got the PPP program, blah, 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 blah.
I got some. It wasn't generous by any stretch of the imagination. And to get that was hundreds of hours of emails and phone calls just to get that little base of breadcrumbs, essentially. They're more than happy to give me loans, which I'm going to be paying off for the next 15 years. They were more than happy to give me a $32,700 loan. But grants, very, very difficult to come by.
Chris, I've asked you multiple times on multiple days to please leave the property.
Don't say that, because you haven't seen me multiple days in a row. Don't lie.
10 seconds.
So you're Cipriano, if you do that, if you attack him, that'll be. You put hands on him. He's putting hands on him. No. Ooh. He's having a seizure. He's having a
I mean, but everybody's gone through Thanksgiving already without gas. It's been 9 months. Do you have a timeline on when this is going to be done?
Okay, now I have PTSD from reliving that again.
Sorry about that. And poor Colin, by the way, because I've sent him a ton of edits. But yeah, that was myself and Tina and Lewis and John Farina. If I'm forgetting anyone else that contributed this year, apologies. My brain is a little mushy right now. Yeah, I'm very proud of that. Frankly, I think we do more with far less than some corporate outlets do. And I think we cover a lot of things that I don't think I know, because when I go, I don't see other press at a lot of these things. Tina, I know a lot of the things you cover. You're one of the few.
Yeah.
You know, there are other good indie journalists out there too. But there's not a lot of us. You know, you got Abby Martin, Status Coup, Ford Fisher, Democracy Now! From time to time.
Yeah.
It's thin. It's thin in terms of reporting. Of course, you know, there's great outlets that do, you know, mostly commentary, and it's not a bad thing if you don't go on the ground. There's a lot of places that would love to go on the ground. They don't have the funding. We were lucky, you know, I'm always transparent. In the beginning, we got a investment from a viewer, actually. It went quick, 50 grand, doesn't really last you long. We spent it on equipment and bringing Ty on at the time. And after that, it was just GoFundMe and building our small dollar membership. Actually, we were growing really, really well during the 2020 campaign. I think we gained like 650 paid members during 6 months. And then COVID hit. And we lost a shit ton of members, understandably, because people lost their jobs and all that. So, you know, even for a lot of people watching, they can't even do $5. Like, it's not in your budget to do $5 a month to anything. So that we totally understand. But if it is, you know, there's a lot of, I think, not just the left, but online right, it's kind of become this, it's kind of become a lot of people just kind of thumping their chest and ranting and screaming and telling you why they're pure and everyone else is fake and sellouts and, you know, whatever terms they call. And we're called plenty, and I'm called plenty of them too. I don't know. I just live my life. Actions speak louder than words, professionally and personally. I think we just showed you what we stand for. Trust me, I'm not doing it for my health. Tina, I don't think you're doing this for fun. I believe in this. I truly believe. I used to work at Fox and I used to work at MSNBC. And I can't tell you how many times I pitched substantive stories to cover. And I was told of a variation of, yeah, that's nice, but I don't think that will rate. I don't think that will rate. If I would have stuck it out there, trust me, I'd be pretty cushy right now. I'd probably be an executive producer or a reporter somewhere. When I was at TYT, I actually got offered a job from a corporate outlet that would have doubled my salary. I'm not saying this like so you could pat me on the back. I'm just telling you, I've had opportunities to venture into the corporate world, and I didn't take it because money would be nice, but I don't know. I need purpose. I need purpose in what I do, and this gives me purpose. It's not easy, as Tina mentioned. Algorithms have changed. What the kind of stuff that we're covering here pre-2017, before YouTube changed its algorithm,
would have been great. Yeah,
did very well. I mean, I was doing this kind of stuff at TYT. They didn't market at all what I was doing. They did not They did not give me any resources other than the travel budget, but they didn't market it. They didn't promote it. And we grew very quickly at TYT. Here it's been difficult because YouTube, honestly, I think YouTube's changing its algorithm without even telling people. But if you can support us, there's a lot of chatter out there. There's a lot of people who like to classify me as things or Tina as things, and that. Bottom line, you could support whoever you want. You could not support whoever you want. All I ask is look at the reporting we're doing and ask yourself, is real on-the-ground journalism worth $5 to $10 a month? It does not mean you need to agree with every perspective I have in terms of commentary or Tina or Ron. I don't think it's really healthy, to tell you the truth. It's become this thing on the left that we all need to agree 100% on all things. And if not, you're not pure, or you're MSN, or you're a sellout.
All the people here don't agree on all things.
Exactly.
Right. By the way, like I was gonna say, like we don't. I mean, you know, I have some disagreements with everyone here, and you all have some disagreements with me. That's I always thought that's how a network's supposed to work, but
it is.
I personally like.
Echo
sure
chambers don't serve anybody. Echo
sure.
chambers,
If I start talking about we need to expand access to healthcare, cancel me. There are some lines. There are some lines in the sand, but we don't have to agree on every strategy. We don't have to agree on you. You might feel stronger on one thing. I think not just Status Coup, but just like the online mentality of the last few years of, oh, I don't like what you're saying, unsubscribe. That's not healthy. It's not healthy. I don't mean like if you want to support us with your dollars or not. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying if your mind is, I just want to go and have what I already think validated 24/7, that's not news. That's not journalism. That's just an online pep rally. So
can I say two things about Status Coup reporting? I don't always agree, that with the commentary always. And
you've told me.
That's just part of it, though. Yeah. Sometimes there's been a couple times I was like, Jordan, this. But the thing is that there aren't very many outlets out there that are talking to poor people, that talk to the Starbucks worker when she made the comment about the economy, how mainstream media reports on our economy every year, and they're like, oh, our economy is getting better, or it's all based on stock markets and it's not based on what we're living through. So in the last story that I really thought was a good story to bring forward, because maybe they can get heat, are the people that NYCHA, the New York Housing Authority, is ignoring, that have not had heat for 9 months with a blizzard coming in. You guys were one of the first down in Jackson, Mississippi. That's something I've known about for about 4 years now. I've talked to organizers down there. I knew that was a crisis, but we have that crisis in Jackson across the country. Our water systems are failing. Our pipes are breaking, but it's mostly in communities of color where Black and brown people live, or it's, where poor people live. And I'm from like the deep Appalachia. I'm from Kentucky, deep in coal country, and I've seen it my whole life. People used to come down here and take pictures of Appalachians pour on our porch. I remember Diane Sawyer. She's a distant cousin of mine. I'm not rich. She just happens to be a distant cousin of mine. I'm poor as dirt. But
now she's doing the hard hitting interviews with Matthew Perry from Friends.
Right. And she did a whole story, and she said, we feed our babies Mountain Dew, and they have Mountain Dew. And it was like all these lies about us. People are like, she's telling the true story of Appalachia. And I'm like, this is why we don't trust nobody.
Yeah.
But Status Coup actually comes, and they'll go on the ground. This week, you all were trying to organize to go cover Cop City. Tina, when I saw you get knocked down by the cops, that's happened to me as a journalist before. And so I felt it. I was like, reporting at those places that you show up at. It's scary to show up as an organizer. It's scary to show up as a reporter, especially when
they'll treat you the same. Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah, they do. Yeah. And cops are terrible. And so the fact that Status Coup shows up and does the work on the ground, whether you agree with all of their commentary or not, listen to the stories, support for the stories, support for the work, because y'all are right. There is an echo chamber, but there's also no one's lifting up the voices of the people struggling anymore. And at least Status Coup is doing that work. I'm homeless right now. You guys went and spoke to multiple people that have gone through what I've gone through, where I was evicted because they were selling the house that I was renting, and I had no money to get a place immediately after, and I'm between jobs. So right now I'm staying at my mom's, and I'm going to go stay with a friend, and I'm a mom. Those stories, so many people are living through this, and the fact that you guys are telling them, I think helps. And that's why I appreciate Status Coup, and that's why, when Jordan's like, come help us, I was like, okay, I would love to do that, because I believe in real journalism and getting the word out there, because if we know, poor people know, but then the question is, what's the next step after that? But being able to say there's a union drive, there's a coat drive, there's this going on. Let's stand up against the incrementalism. Let's call out this, this piece of legislation or that piece of legislation. That's sort of the next step after sharing the stories, and you guys do that as well. And so
I think it's important. I think it's important for people to know, even if you're not able or whatever, not willing to contribute, I think you should know. And Tina, I'd love you to chime in. I spend to be clear, a lot more time talking to working class and impoverished people off camera than I do on camera.
Yes.
I know for a fact that Tina often is working 14, 15 hours a day on stories that, frankly, she knows are not going to go viral, on stories that she knows are going to be published. And you've done some great work in the Daily Dot and some others on extremism. I think Tina, in my opinion, is the best investigative journalist on the extremist right, on the growing violent conspiracy
You're
movements.
making me blush.
On domestic terrorism. I think she's better than any of these disinformation reporters at mainstream outlets, and she doesn't get the credit she deserves. She's working on these stories. She's talking to sources off camera most of the time, not on camera. And I'm not telling you what I do off camera so you'll give me accolades. I want you to know what you just saw is maybe 30% of it. There's a whole lot more off camera, and part of the blessing and the curse sometimes.
Getting the sources necessary to tell a story requires a lot of time investment. I mean, people aren't just going to give you information because you ask them for it. They need to know that they can trust you, and that takes time. Also, having to vet out the information you're giving, that takes a lot of time too often. Sometimes you go down a rabbit hole for 2 weeks and it doesn't lead anywhere. But it's all necessary for like a 3-page article. It's just how it is.
Well, that's good journalism, Tina. Not a lot of people do the thing where they let the facts lead the story instead of build the story these days. They pull the facts in to build it around their story. So the fact that you're letting the facts lead the story says a lot about your character as a journalist, to be honest. Because that's not done anymore,
And also,
it's not done anymore because it doesn't pay the bills. That's the reality, unfortunately.
And also, Ron might not be quote unquote an investigative journalist, but
I'm not.
He's one of the only people talking about. He's one of the only people talking about digital rights on the internet, on the attacks on a free internet. That's not a sexy topic.
Speaking of stuff that doesn't get clicks, try basing your policy actions on policies that Google and YouTube don't want to see pass.
Right. You're definitely flagged on most of your stories.
Oh, dude, yeah, it's just
so. Listen, there's some days I would much prefer to not do the journalism and just come on here and do some hot takes and go after some people and lowest common denominator shit and dress that up as journalism. But we all do this for a reason, and we're going to do it as long as we can keep the lights on. If you've noticed, we've tried to expand with Tina, Ron, Kim Brown, who hosts the show on Wednesdays, Steve Grumbine, who's been doing Let's Get Ready to Grumble this year with us, and he was on with me co-hosting when I was before I went on leave. Lewis, John Farina, Obviously, we got Colin doing really Colin. Without Colin, this whole thing falls apart. He's handling the live streams and graphics and a lot of the logistics. So all this costs money. I got to pay people, and I wish I could pay them more, but I can only pay what we have. So again, if in your mind the entry point is we have to agree on all things, that maybe I'm not your guy and we're not your gal, and yeah, there's plenty of channels out there that you could support that I guess will agree on everything. For what it's worth, my commentary is informed on Traveling America. My commentary is informed by seeing this stuff up close and realizing there is more nuance than you might think or other people might tell you. My commentary comes not from hot takes or absolutist mentality, but from seeing on the local level, particularly corruption and how it works, seeing neoliberalism and how it works, seeing extremism up front on the Republican side. So that's where my commentary comes from. But you don't have to agree with me on all things. I think it's better that you don't. But all I ask is if it's within your means, consider signing up. It's not to say we're the only people that do reportings. There are other channels that do it. I would put the very little money I have down that we do more on the ground reporting across this country than most on stories that actually matter. So please sign up, statuscoup.com/join. Sorry we went longer, everybody, but thanks. Your parting words, Ron, Tina.
Well,
Zana.
I think we gotta get to the super chats here. I know
Yes.
you got
Oh,
you got a baby to attend to. So if you gotta,
I don't see any, but I don't see any. But if
we
you
got some, man. Yeah, no,
okay.
we got some.
No, we got
yeah.
some good ones and some some questions. I think just a couple. Yeah.
Read them. Go ahead.
So JX, what's up? And guys, sorry that it took us so long. We had a different style of stream today, but some people say supporting a third party will spoil the elections. Others say spoiling is the point. I agree with others. How about you? I personally agree with neither because I reject that whole
Spoiler thing.
spoiler. Because that's like saying, the duopoly is entitled to an election and nobody else. So I get what you're saying, JX, but I just immediately dismissed that. I'm like, no, the Democrats are not entitled to anyone's vote. The Republicans are not entitled to anyone's
100%.
vote. So
votes need to be earned. The sense of entitlement from both political parties is really obnoxious. Votes need to be earned. If you're not earning votes, that is on you as a candidate. And no voter should just hand over their vote. That is your power you're giving away if you do that. So yes, hold your vote for something. Make the candidate work for your vote. I don't believe in spoiler candidates. I believe in democracy.
And as a candidate, run to win. As somebody who's supporting a candidate, run to win. It is possible, and I know people may disagree with me, but it is very possible to run independent or to run, third parties. That's the thing. You have to have ballot access to run a third party. But entry level right now, even if you're building a third party right now, let's say Socialist Alternative or Green Party or wherever they don't have ballot access, run independent. It is possible. It's going to be a harder haul, but you get to move all the way to the general election. So you have a lot longer.
That's true. You
don't have to do a primary.
You automatically pass through primary if you're an independent candidate. You're right.
Yeah, spoilers only exist if we have that in our heads and we don't go out and vote for who we want to vote for. Like if we're not basing our vote, if we're basing our votes on our party winning, I'm not big on party loyalty for any party. That's just how I feel about it. But and Democrats are corrupt as hell, so to heck with them. They're terrible. So you vote for, like Tina's been saying the whole time, for who you believe in. And then the spoiler is really one of those things that they tell us, because they called all my candidates spoilers. They're like, Paula Jean's running against Joe Manchin in the primary. That means she's a spoiler for what?
For what? Yeah, for what?
Joe Manchin's he's entitled to that office. It's just his. He's entitled to. It's amazing. It's an amazing mentality. Only in the United States. I swear. Only in the United States.
I'll give two things for that. One, I agree with you. I think it's very arrogant to put it on the voter, that it's on you and you're to blame if a certain candidate wins because you didn't come out and vote. Well, you're the candidate. You need to convince them to vote for you. And the second point, I'd be careful buying the narrative. If you just don't vote for the Democratic Party, then they'll move to the left. if you keep
I don't think that's true.
if you keep giving them your vote, or if you finally stop giving, I don't care if you vote for them or not. I don't care. You could vote or not vote for the Democratic Party. But to be clear, Democratic Party lost to an orange orangutan used car salesman in 2016 and moved to the right. So, like, just not voting for Democrats, if the mentality is, well, that's the way they're finally going to change, or that's how you're going to break them by not voting for them, I think Bernie was right. They'd rather go down on the Titanic in first class. So don't think just...
I agree with that.
If you don't want to vote for them, don't vote for them. But I'm just telling you that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to move to the left or move over to your position, because I'm not certain their first priority is winning. I think it's...
No, I don't believe it is at all. I think their first priority is uphold the status quo, uphold the gravy train.
Yeah,
I think they know they need to beat a Republican or two in the process. So it's not like they're like, well, we got to beat a Republican or two occasionally so the facade keeps going. But as long as the gravy train keeps rolling, that's all they really care about. I mean, that's why, and I have some friends and colleagues who don't vote at all. I understand what got them to that point. I get it. But, I'm certainly not there, because I'm like, look, if you don't even show up, you're giving them exactly what they want.
You're giving them
what they want.
Yep.
I mean, in local elections, turnout is at about 27%. They'd be thrilled if it was even freaking lower.
That's right.
Because then it's like you're not even, trying to just make a dent. So,
but this is also why we have minority rule in the country. There's the lower the turnout, the worse the worst candidate is the one that generally wins. Like we at some point we have to acknowledge that. And also, can we all have a moment to recognize that Sinema was at one time a Green Party candidate? Just
Absolutely.
saying.
Welcome,
and can we all have a
Status Coup?
Can we have a moment to welcome new Status Coup member?
Welcome, Sam.
Sam.
Good job, Sam. You're starting out 23 right.
So be like Sam, sign up, statuscoup.com/join. I'm going to take a moment and go relieve my wife so I can take care of the baby. Thank you guys for having me. If you came late, I'm not quite back all the way. I should be back all the way middle of January. Right now, I'm taking care of a newborn and working on a book. So I should be back.
Which is also kind of a newborn.
Right. It's a whole different process.
Yeah, if you guys, some people have thought I'm just chilling. Trust me, I'm not just chilling. I've been working on a book. I'm 7 chapters down. Each one has taken a while because I need to kind of re-report everything I've already reported, and I'm finding all these new things. So the book's on Flint. I'm trying to get a publisher. No news on that yet, but I should be back hopefully in 2 or 3 weeks. But you're in good hands with Ron, Tina, Kim, everybody else. Zana, thanks for coming on and your help. And I'll see you guys. Steve Grumbine will be live tomorrow at 5 o'clock. So we'll have another live stream. And then next week, not Monday, but
Tuesday.
Ron and Tina will be back on Thursday. So thanks for having me, and continue on with these super chats.
All right, Jordan. Thanks for... That's kind of funny saying thanks for popping into Jordan. Thanks for popping in. We'll see how your screen test went. We'll call you. But all right, let's get to these. Fly Chomper Fly, what's up? Happy holidays, happy New Year. So this is from a while ago. No boomers are 50-50. New data shows Gen X worse.
Hang on now, I'm Gen X.
I don't know. That's what Fly Chomp. I don't know. I don't know what data that is, one way or another. So I have no idea. But
here's new data that shows.
Wait, Ron, are you millennial or Gen X?
I'm millennial.
Oh, damn it! Am I the only Gen X here? Damn it!
I'm right on the cusp, directly in between. That's called the lost generation.
The Xennial, is that you?
Yep.
So I'm a millennial old because I am like on the older end of millennials.
Send us information on what you're talking about here with Gen X. I need to know.
Tina is very concerned about this. Fly Chomper Fly, send her that data. She will register it right next to the Hitler porn. Peace coming soon, and we'll get to the bottom of all this.
Tina, you'll be fascinated because the data is showing that most of the QAnon circles and the MAGA
Gen Xers.
Gen Xers, man.
Oh my God. I mean,
some of your people couldn't handle the internet.
No, obviously, but
some of you Gen Xers couldn't handle it.
Gen Xers have been completely just tuned out of everything for so long. Why would they come back to that? Like, what the fuck? Oh,
because they embraced the internet and weren't ready for it. They weren't ready for the internet. They couldn't handle like once it got past dial-up, they were fucked. They were like, oh man.
Like, I'm old enough to like have worked for a news organization where we had actual like print media. Like, I mean, we have newspapers now, but this was a magazine, and I would have to we didn't have computers, right? There was no internet. So you would type up your piece, you would get actual photographs, like real photographs, and you would have to FedEx this entire package to the editor who was always, in New York or whatever. And then there would be like days turnaround, and then he would call you because he would be like, I'm going to type in these notes and do this thing. Like, imagine working that way. That was like normal. The internet broke our brains. I don't know. I loved it when the internet came along. My first PC had 8 megabytes of RAM. 8.
That was a lot back then.
I know.
You had a bougie computer back then.
I don't remember.
I had a Macintosh Performa. It was so bougie. It was bougie-tastic.
So
anyway, I apologize on behalf of my fellow Gen X team members for that, because that's terrible to hear. I didn't know that.
All right, so we got some to get through. JX, you're back. What's up? Happy holidays. Happy New Year. We don't need ranked choice voting. The ability to spoil is power. Embrace it. I kind of want to win stuff. Like I'm sort of a big fan of trying to actually get real power, and I think ranked choice voting would help. That's my take on it. But yeah, I don't know.
Agree.
I don't know. I'm tired of losing. Like I'm really tired of losing.
I just think ranked choice voting is very much more democratic. It just is. Like, you have options, you can rank who you want, then it goes into the next round, and it goes next round. Like, it's a better system.
Well, and it eliminates the whole and it just eliminates the whole spoiler bullshit thing. It eliminates
everybody's thrown into the same mix. Exactly.
So I don't know. I like it. It doesn't guarantee us a win all the time, but I think it'll help. So I am for ranked choice voting. I do want to see us have ranked choice voting. Observer, what's up? Happy holidays, happy New Year's. Reeve Ferguson's investment theory of party competition. Precise number of parties don't matter. You can have 17 parties and get the same results
because of economics.
Economics. Yeah, but why is it in every country that has more parties, their extremes are nowhere close to us?
Yeah, the extremes are less. I'm gonna have to agree.
They're way less. Like they're way less.
There's a reason you have universal health care in most of these other countries, and we don't have it here. That is economic power. That is at the crux of that. But I think how you can address that economic power is through a more broad form democracy.
And looking at the global south is great examples, because some of the parties that rose up in the global south, that rose up through the workers and through the working poor, that have gotten traction, such as Maduro and others, did so by outreach to those, by hyper focusing on outreach to those communities and bringing workers in. And, I feel like the global south is a really great example of looking at some of the lessons learned. There's a really great example of how we could do that here, even if we're not rich, and even if we're up against this corporate machine we're up against. Didn't talk about that tonight. That's a whole other show. If y'all want to chat about that, but there's a lot of lessons there.
Yeah.
So we got, thank you for that, Observer. Joshua Jenkins. Am I saying that right? Joshua Jenkins. How long are you going to give in to them until you just quit and ignore their advances? I feel like I would need more information to answer that question, Joshua.
Shoot.
This is why sometimes
the Democratic Party. I think
it's
insinuating that. That's what I
All right,
feel.
well, I'm not a Democrat, so I don't know what to tell you there. I'm not even a registered Democrat, so
I'm NPP.
Yeah, I'm no party.
I'm
thinking about
there's a thing called NPP, which is no party preference.
Yeah, that's what I am in California. Because in California, you don't really need, it doesn't really screw you in primaries in California.
Well, because we have semi-open primaries, so yeah.
Yeah. Semi-open, which, by the way, in case anyone's curious, semi-open means technically they're open, but they can just change their minds whatever the fuck they feel like it. Because isn't that how it works here? Like, technically, they could just be like, "Oh, we changed our minds. Fuck you," and you're like, "Okay." Like, but
Well, I mean, not to digress into a more technical conversation, it has to do with ballots. Like, you have to ask for a crossover ballot if you want to vote for Democrats. Like, if we were truly an open, and we voted for this by referendum, and it was the political parties that took it to court and got these carve-outs. So initially, it would have been just everybody gets a ballot. It's entirely open. That's what it is. But but there are some
and they mixed it up specifically during a presidential.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Man,
Let's
California's a mess.
Yeah.
And the way they prioritize names on the ballot.
What state isn't a mess, though? I mean, what state isn't a mess, though?
Every state's a mess.
I mean, I would say, and believe me,
I feel
California.
Like Iowa is less of a mess. But I mean, we can. That's wait. I'm not even going to open that can of worms. Never mind.
I mean, yeah. Well, yeah. We'll be here all night. But like, yeah.
Talking about caucuses, which is like a whole nother thing.
Yeah. I mean, I actually do. Although I don't like our system at all in general, I do like our being the United States. I do like the jungle primary a little better than the just winner takes all.
Absolutely.
Like I do like it a little better. So anyway, so here we go. Hold on, let me find Fly Chomper Fly, you're back. What's up? I agree to go ranked choice, but just to be clear, ranked choice didn't force to talk policies in the race I know about personally. Yes, still better. Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's like know, the holy grail that it fixes everything, but I think it's better than what we got now.
Direction. I think it's better than what we got now. I think it's more fair. Yeah, it's not a cure-all.
Lana, Tina, this is for you. Tina, please check your. Yeah, Lana's got some DMs for you, and Lana hates the clock. Check your DMs. Ignore the clock.
Ignore the clock.
Chris, we'll give Jordan your message. Maybe he's still watching. Congrats to Jordan and Annette. Glad to hear that Lily is thriving. Good luck with sleep deprivation. Enjoy. This time will pass fast. That's what people who make people say. They say it goes really well. Zana, you know, you've done the people making thing. Yeah, it goes fast, right?
12 years old, and now we sit and watch movies and politics, and she analyzes Ben Shapiro, and so yeah, but
so did she?
12 years ago, she was this little, like, she was tiny too. This little 4-pound, 9-ounce, like munchkin that looked like Gollum from Lord of the Rings. You know, now she.
You know, I mostly ignore Ben Shapiro, but I did see.
Yeah, so do
I did. Everyone was retweeting when he wrote that movie review, and especially like in the comedy and writing world. So Ben Shapiro doesn't understand what a plot twist is, or he thinks that's a bad thing. like it was the most ridiculous. He wrote a review about Glass Onion, which I watched recently. I enjoyed it. It didn't like blow me away. I thought Knives Out was better, but he wrote this and he spoils it, so I won't like say what's in his review. But he basically acknowledges that he thinks plot twists are bad, or he doesn't understand how it works, or a mystery. I guess there's other things
There's that famous speech he made about if people could just sell their houses if climate change brings about a lot of flooding, it's no big deal. People can just sell their houses. And so some guy, this is on YouTube somewhere, some guy made this really hilarious video where he bursts through the wall and he says, "I'm not Aquaman."
Yeah. And speaking of flooding, he doesn't understand some things about female anatomy, apparently. So yeah, interesting guy. But moving on.
She likes to laugh at him and all kinds of things.
Who are you selling these houses to, dude? Like Aquaman? Yeah, okay.
Is he Gen X or millennial? I think he's a millennial.
God,
I think he's the millennial.
I think he's millennial. Please tell me he's not Gen X.
No, I think he's millennial, yeah. So, Fly Chomper Fly, what's up? Welcome back. Yes, media is the key overlord. Yep, that's true. That's the truth. Ethan, what's up? Ethan, exclamation point. Love it.
Yes!
Thank you, Ethan. Happy New Year. Nikki, what's up? Happy New Year. How are you? Love y'all. Solidarity. Thank you so much for that. Cobb fan from down under. Hope all's well in Australia. Hope to see you next time I'm out there. You give us your super sticker. Thank you so much for that. Tony DeMayo, I hope to see you in Chicago, by the way. I should be announcing that show soon. I'm locking things in Chicago. 1,000 thank yous for your coverage of the attacks on LGBTQ people. Thank you for that, Tony.
Fucking control. Like it's growing worse. I just can't.
Well, isn't it interesting that everybody here has been very outraged by the Don't Say Gay bill? And what do we all have in common? We read the fucking thing.
Yeah.
We read it. It's like that moment in 2008 on the debate stage where they're like, Status Coup, you're the only person here who voted against the Patriot Act. Yeah, I read it. I'm the only person on this stage that read the fucking thing. Anyway, thank you for that, Tony.
It was a bad thing, and we were like, no, that's a good thing you voted no on that. This terrible piece of legislation. It's still
terrible.
It is still haunting us all these years later.
Yep.
It sticks out to me because those kids are talking about their lives literally being in danger and being accosted at school and like all
their
kinds
lives
of
literally are in danger. Listen. The ramped up heat against the LGBTQ community right now is very dangerous. All of this hate speech leads to violence in the real world. We know it does. We've seen
it already has.
That's what I was about to say. We've seen the attacks already start to happen, and they could get worse. I'm deeply concerned about it.
And some people say, well, at least we know who Libs of TikTok is for real now after she came on, Tucker Carlson and Rycheck, said that being gay was apparently evil and transitioning was evil. Horrifying. Well, and, it's great that we know who she is, but I knew who she was. We knew who she was from the beginning. Most people did. And all that I feel like it does, honestly, I'm all for marketplace ideas. I am against censorship, but we do have to recognize as well that her going on a mainstream media outlet and saying this stuff normalizes it. It normalizes
it. Absolutely does. Listen, I don't care if people hate me for saying this, but I have no problem saying it. I think some hate speech absolutely should be censored. And if you hate me for saying that, go ahead and hate me for it. But hate speech leads to violence in the real world. We know this. We've seen it time and time again. So no, I don't think we should be handing out megaphones to people that are just screaming hateful things all over the place. We need to tamp it down. I'm not saying get rid of their First Amendment rights at all, but the idea that we should just give them equal time, equal measure, I don't agree with it.
No, and there's a difference between freedom of speech and the right to say things and the right to be platformed.
That's right.
I can't walk into New York Times tomorrow and go, Democratic Party sucks. I have a whole article and you must publish it now. They're not going to publish that.
Yeah, no, I've been trying that for years and they still just don't. I've tried. I brought cookies the one time. I'm like, maybe, you attract a bee with honey, right? And it still didn't work. They still were like, Ron, you got to go, man. And then I'm just like, all right, you still all get half off to my show. So Nikki, what's up? You're back. Thank you so much. Nikki O'Brien, Tina and Ron have been fantastic. Great to see you back, Jordan.
I have been absolutely enjoying having Ron as a partner here. This has been great, by the way.
You too, Tina. And yeah, thank you for that. We'll give Jordan the memo as well. Yeah. Fly Chopper Fly. I don't understand what you're trying to say here, Fly Chopper Fly. Tina is amazing. I understand that part. I agree with it.
Shouldn't be.
What do they mean by that?
So, I mean, it puts me in danger that I'm so public and open and honest about who I am and use my real name and all that. You're not wrong. I mean,
I see.
I've had some issues. I'm not going to talk about it publicly, but yeah. It is a little bit, but that's fine. I accept that going into this,
Yeah.
It's part and parcel.
Well, you have all your incognito things, right? I mean, you have some like incognito stuff.
Not really. I have a Kevlar vest, but that's about it. I don't know. I'm never incognito. You can't really do journalism incognito, not properly, in my opinion.
Well, I don't mean when you're like interviewing people, but I mean like some of the online sleuthing that you do.
Oh yeah, I have a totally fake Nazi account. Yes, correct. But I don't. Not in my real name. Yeah, but I don't.
Casually.
But I don't honeypot people either. I don't use it to communicate. I just observe.
All right.
Because that would be another ethical problem. I think you can't really honeypot people from a fake account. That would be completely unethical.
Sure. Oh yeah, no, it's.
But some people have no problem doing it. I just think it's not ethical.
We got some Rockfin tips. What's up, Roger Metters? How are you? I hope everything is well in New York.
Hi,
Roger, everyone is happy to see you. Roger is the ballot initiative guru. And Roger says,
"Oh, sorry.
Yeah, he's great. I love that guy." And Roger says, "Just got here 2 minutes ago. I say F it, abolish all political parties." And Roger, true to form here, support citizen ballot initiatives. Hey, man, I'm with you, man. To force voters to educate themselves on the candidates, to eliminate lazy voting on voting for an alphabet letter next to the name, endorse RCV, no spoilers. I hear you, Roger. I hear your frustration. I'm with you. And then Roger goes on to say, don't worry, I'm Gen X, Tina. Zana, what's up? Check your email for AZ for Medicare for All coalition meeting next week. Ron, those are fighting words, man. About Gen X, I've been doing IT longer than you. I've never been doing IT at all, man. So you got me beat. When the internet came, I was on it. Hey, I'm with you. It's not everybody. I'm just saying generally that happened a little bit. But we are
floppy disks.
Huh? I remember floppy disks. I remember those. No, I'm always. I'm a Luddite. I'm including myself in the Luddite category. I'm just speaking general here. But we are the forgotten generation, Ron. That's why we are X. Hey, Gen X made a bunch of my favorite music, Roger. Don't get me wrong here.
Exactly.
I celebrate a lot of Gen X. I'm against parties and want them gone too self-interested. I hear you. We got to make sure we good before we help you. Not if, but when they get corrupted. I feel you, Roger. I'm with you, man. Tina, First Amendment is meant to protect speech you don't like, which includes hate speech. If we don't protect it, then they'll come for the speech.
I agree, but there's a difference between censorship and giving somebody a platform and a First Amendment right, which is a pact between you and the government. I'm saying that those are two separate things and they should not be treated the same.
Well, and there's also a big difference. Like, people kind of forget that it's like there's that line between when you incite violence, which is not protected speech, nor should it be.
That is the other part of it. Exactly.
So it's like, I mean, you know, and we don't have time to get into all like take a deep dive into this right now. But like, you know, the Libs of TikTok account, like they will publish when events are happening. Like they'll be like, this drag event is happening.
Go attack these people. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like that. I mean, that's inciting violence.
I agree. So what I mean by censorship is, does Libs of TikTok have a First Amendment right to say that? Yes, they absolutely do. Should they be allowed to say it? Yes, they absolutely do. Does Twitter necessarily have to reinstate the count and bump up their algorithm so that more people see it and give it a platform? No, that's not a First Amendment issue at all anymore. And I do understand why, you know, say what you want about Jack Dorsey, but Jack Dorsey was really trying to find the balance here between giving people the opportunity to say what they wanted to say, but also protecting individuals that are getting bullied, that are getting harmed in the real world from it, et cetera, et cetera. So
it wasn't so much Jack Dorsey. Just to be clear here, it wasn't so much Jack Dorsey. It was a bunch of attorneys who he hired. And the only reason I make that distinction is because Elon Musk, free speech warrior Magoo, fired all those people.
He did. It's like it's a fucking joke. I mean, Elon Musk is not a First Amendment rights guy.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that there's a balance to be had here, and I don't know why it's become a mantra to just acknowledge that hate speech can be very detrimental in the real world. Like, it can lead to serious violence. I don't know why that's become problematic all of a sudden. I think there's this sort of knee-jerk tendency to be like free speech absolutist to the point where we don't question maybe the wisdom of certain things. And maybe I'm coming at this from this position because I see it on a daily basis. I see some really hateful shit that comes out of people's mouths on a daily basis. And I know where that's leading. You know, if you're not exposed to that, I could see you maybe not having the same opinion that I do on this. But these guys still have their First Amendment rights. They are still saying the hateful things that are very threatening, you know, talking about killing people, their guns, whatever not. They're just not doing it.
Isn't protected. It's not protected by the First Amendment. There are multiple precedents. There's the
I agree.
Was it? I can't remember the names now, but the crosses being burned in the front yard. That was one precedent. You had multiple. There's probably 6 or 7 precedents specifically about harassment and intimidation. One of them was regarding intimidation in front of voter stations, and that happened. This cycle.
That should not be allowed. Right?
Precedent against that.
In Arizona. It happened in Arizona. And then you go to countries like Poland, Germany, whatever else, some of the European countries that live through Nazi Germany, they don't allow you to march around with a swastika. It's against the law. There's a reason they created that law, because they saw where that speech led to. So I'm just saying that maybe something isn't as, cut and dry as what we'd like it to be. I think this is a very complex conversation with a lot of moving parts, and finding the balance is important.
Well, that's why different places, I mean, like you kind of like different places have different free speech laws. And, I can't really speak to which country has the best ones, because I've only ever lived in the United States. I think our free speech laws are pretty good. I mean, I think the way we kind of designate it, I think it's one of the few things where our laws are actually pretty good. There's a lot of our laws that I think really suck. I think our free speech laws are actually pretty decent. Is England better? I don't know.
No,
I don't have any.
No, they do not.
I mean, I can't.
They do not have protected free speech that we do. In fact, I have a journalist that is currently being sued in courts in Britain over a piece he published here in the United States. So,
all right, then you know more about the way their laws. You know more about the way their laws work. I can't.
There's moving parts there. So like the problem in Britain is because what they want to classify as libel slander is like a rich person is pissed that he didn't like what you said about him. It doesn't matter if it's true or not, I guess. But what I'm talking about specifically is really hardcore hate speech. Let me be really clear. I'm talking about a very small segment of speech that I think we do need to monitor and not necessarily blast from the mountaintop.
Well, hateful speech, intimidation, threats of violence, death threats. I mean, I've gotten all of that, a lot. But that type of language is used a lot of times to oppress speech. That's one thing that people don't talk about.
I agree. Yes, they want to oppress everybody else's speech. You're correct. I mean, and listen,
how they oppress the activists, the women's rights activists, the black activists. Look at the McCarthy era. Look at what they did to anyone who wanted to talk about socialism or communism. I mean, the McCarthy era is a great example of this. So intimidation is a tactic that is used, 100%. And they field it under the free speech umbrella. They say, we have a right to say these hateful things and to scare you, because
so that
umbrella is to silence you. It's a bubble. It's not an umbrella. And then people are afraid to speak up.
It's a bubble. And listen, I've spoken to these Nazis as me, my personal, obviously who I am, not my fake account. I've had the conversations with these guys. I've had to reach out to them for comment. I've interviewed several of them. So yeah, I mean, they've got free speech. I'm not suggesting we remove their First Amendment at all. I prefer, and you might think this sounds crazy too, I would prefer to engage them on one-on-one conversations where you can have, talk that shit out with them. But I don't think that's the same thing of creating a platform where they're allowed to promote very, very detrimental ideology that harms people. Those are different things. That's all I'm saying. And then you also have that other part that I don't even want to get into right now, which is brand safety. Like, does an advertiser have a right to say, I'm going to pull my ads from your site because I don't want to have my brand associated with, a black sun or a swastika or a noose or whatever? They have a right to say that because they also have free speech.
Right. Yep. Yeah. All right. So Happy New Year, everybody. It is 2023. How long we've been streaming for. We still got a few more, which, by the way, seriously, though, everybody, thank you so much for your generosity and for tuning in today. We appreciate it so much. Roger Meadows, what's up, buddy? Ron, not only do I go by the CBI Citizen Ballot Initiative moniker, but never forget, I also go by the Public Banking and Worker Cooperative moniker as well. I feel you, Roger. Roger is the Ballot Initiative moniker. He is the Public Banking guy, the Worker Co-op guy.
And yeah, Roger, come on the show.
Public
And
banks are
eliminate
so
all parties
freaking
guy.
important.
That's also Roger.
That's also, yeah. Roger's
down with the eliminate all parties. I think we should just be voting for individuals. What do we need political parties for? They're only serving the rich.
I feel you. I'm with you.
That's it. I mean,
Roger checking all the killer boxes. And Despos Fleisch, what's up?
What's up?
Much love for the Status Coup crew. Thank you so much. I might even overlook the fact that Ron is a tomato planophobic. I'm gonna try again, and I will successfully grow something. I did manage to kill all the tomato plants brutally. I just failed miserably.
Ron, I killed them too when I tried to grow them. I don't know why. I thought tomato plants would be easy to grow, and then
they are. We're just not good at this.
Okay, so the first year they all died. So I tried it the second year, and I got these giant bushy plants, but no tomatoes.
Huh.
Maybe third time's gonna be the charm. I don't know. I'm 0 for 2 because I tried 2 plants and I fucked them both up. So my zucchinis, I got a couple flowers and that's it. No zucchini. So yeah, I'm gonna try again, guys. We'll go ahead and give some thank yous if you don't mind. Real quick, I want to tell you guys where I'll be. January 7th, I will be in San Diego, California. That's a free show, so come out, San Diego. January 28th, Tucson, Arizona. Use the promo code Lucy at checkout for discounted tickets, and that's for a limited time only, so don't wait, Tucson. And that's not just a stand-up show. That's a screening of my short film, Loner. And February 10th, April 14th, and May 12th, I'll be in Los Angeles, California, working on my 2023 hour at the Glendale Room. And I'll be announcing more tour dates soon. American Midwest, UK, I'm coming. And let me go ahead and let's thank everybody. JX, thank you so much. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. Fly Chopper Fly, JX, Observer, Joshua, Fly Chopper Fly, Lana, Chris Garrett, Fly Chopper Fly, Ethan, Nikki, Cobb Fan, Tony DeMeo, Nikki, Fly Chopper Fly, and Desbush Flies, and Roger over on the Rockfin. Thank you guys so much. This was a lot of fun. It was awesome. Yeah. Zana, good to hang with you.
Yeah, Zana, we got to have you on more. And then we are still.
And then that other new guy who popped in, I forget his name, but he seemed like an okay dude. I guess he's in New York or something. But we'll see if we see more of that guy.
Yeah, and we are definitely going to be getting a phone situation so we can take call-ins without using the call-in app, since that doesn't seem to be always functioning. So, and I'm looking forward to that.
And calling on the 1s and 2s. Calling the person.
To talk to people. I love talking to people. And yeah, Colin, where are you, Colin? Colin, show your face.
He quit like an hour ago.
He quit. Oh, there he is.
Oh, there he is.
Thank you, Colin, for everything you do. We appreciate you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Colin is the goat.
Yeah. Oh, Fly Chopper Fly, what's up? Pew Res, a different look at generations plus partisanship. I don't know what's Pew Res. Does anyone know what that is?
How's it spelled?
PEW. Here, hold on.
This is why we need a phone call line.
Pew studies. Pew research.
Oh, Pew research.
Oh, Pew research. Oh.
Yeah. Gotcha.
All right. We've been streaming for over 2.5 hours. I think I might have caught that if it was earlier in the stream, but that went a little over my head right now. I'm just like, Pew Res, what is that? Is that a band?
That's a Gen X band, man. Come on now.
That's a Gen X band. Nirvana used to open for them.
No. It was made up of ex-Nirvana guys and ex-Alice in Chains guys. How do you not know this band?
I know. I should. Actually, a buddy of mine, he was in a band called Coffin Break. They were part of like the Seattle scene. And there's this famous photo of Kurt Cobain in his band's sweatshirt. I'm just like, oh my God, that's Kurt Cobain. Wear your band's shirt. That's super cool. Badass. That's so badass.
I'm blown up over my fireplace. Be like the iconic. Like, no, my kids' pictures aren't going up. It's Kurt Cobain in my band t-shirt.
Right? It'd be so badass. Exactly. Guys, thank you all so much. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
This has been Status Coup, and we'll be back on Tuesday. I believe. Well, no, Steve will be here tomorrow. And then the regular stream will be back on Tuesday. Peace.